of the first ones, Sampanand Mishra ji. Dr. Sampanand Mishra is a Dean Culture and Professor at Rishiod University in Sonipat. He has worked on collected verse of Vasishtha Kavya Kantha, Ganpati Muni, published in 12 volumes. He is also the founder of first ever 24-hour Sanskrit radio called Divya Vani Sanskrit Radio in 2013. In 2014, he also founded out Samskrita Bala Sahitya Parishad with the aim of creating, evaluating and propagating children's literature in Sanskrit. Recently, he has also launched a monthly Sanskrit magazine for children called Saptavarna. He has been awarded by President's Award, Maharshi Badarna Vyasa Samman 2011 for his outstanding contribution to Sanskrit. He is associated with Atharva Forum in an advisory role. Please welcome with a loud cheer to him. Our next panelist is Pranav Kumar Vasishtha. He is a student of Dharma Shastra and Constitution of India. He is a learner for life, henceforth he is so humble to say this. Otherwise, he has studied in computer science as a formal degree, and he also holds an MS degree. He is involved in many translation projects in Sanskrit, Telugu and English language. His study with late Professor Navjyoti Singh, who also founded the Center for Exact Humanities at IIIT Hyderabad, has given him an appreciation of how to approach the study of Shastras in a manner that is contemporary and relevant. Pranav is actively working and contributing at Atharva Forum and holds an advisory role over there. He is also associated with Purna Pramati, a Center for Integrated Learning at Bangalore. Please welcome with a warm cheer. Last but not least, the third panelist is Heli Kalyan. Heli Kalyan has a BTech in computer science and also holds an MBA degree from IIM. He works in IT industry, and when he's not working formally, he's either reading books or either studying the modernity, tradition, continuity, religion, ecology, economics, technology, society. Heli Kalyan is also speaker on Atharva Forum, and you will find him at many talks of Atharva Forum YouTube channel on Sanatan Dharma, narrative, traditions and environment. Please give him a loud cheer. Panel is open for you. Yep. It will take a second to start. They're all on.
सुरासुरैस्सेवितपादपङ्कजा करे विराजत्कमनीयपुस्तका विरिञ्चिपत्नी कमलासनस्था सरस्वती नृत्यतु वाचिमे सदा वागर्थाविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्थप्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ. This first shloka of Raghuvamsha is an indicator of the nature of how we understand bhasha, and that's something that is also an indicator of how we need to as well look at our own engagement with bhasha in relation to the kind of actions that we do. So when we look at the word and consider bhasha, primarily there are two aspects of bhasha. One is the shabda, and the other is the artha, of which bhava becomes a very important aspect. And I'm assuming that the sense of bhava, which many of us try to convey when we want to speak in English, is something that is Indian in its sense. So we might speak in English, but certainly say bhava is something which is much deeper, is possibly in our own languages. Very interestingly, over the past few, let's say, couple of hundreds of years, we've had a strange situation where we use our own language, but possibly we mean something else. So much so that when we use the term Samskriti, we come to mean it more in terms of the English culture. And what is the distinction between these two becomes an important question in itself. So that Samskriti is referent to Samyak Shobhana Kriti, which is a matter of everyday action, because man cannot but act, and there is some action or the other that everybody does at every moment in time. So what is it that actually makes it samyak? There's a sense by which samyak is understood, which you can say can indeed be that the consequence of what we do is indeed something that is going to give us favorable results, not just for now, but for all times forever also. So that sense of samyak is possibly, say, most appropriate, is what I thought of bringing to attention. And how do we arrive at that? It is there that I see the avinabhava sambandha between shabda and artha plays a major role. I thought with these opening words, I'd request Hallie to take the discussion further. I'm not wrong, this is many students here are from management background. Is that true, or there's okay? So there's a Paramparik shloka that actually says that there is no akshara which is not a mantra. There is no mula, that is no root, which is not an oshadhi. There is no person who is not a prayojaka. In the sense, everybody indeed has something to convey, contribute. But there must be some kind of a yojana which actually enables them to indeed bring out what is useful, what is actually appropriate, apt in a given situation. Now, how can one do that is a key question. There is a sense by which we understand Samskriti when taken in the English culture sense, that we look at a particular set of people, the way in which they act, and one might as well give a very simplistic definition saying that Samskriti is that which people indeed are practicing. Because there is a material practice which comes to play whenever one has to talk about culture. But the material practices can keep changing. I mean, there's a new technology that comes. Naturally, the material practice of how one behaves alters with the changing technology, changing kind of environment that we are part of. So in that sense, if we take the word culture, which keeps changing, then that's not something that we notice the word when Indians try to describe this, this spread of the word culture in the society. They wanted to have an appropriate term for it in our own languages. So if you look at the word Samskriti and go back into our own language history and the variety of literatures that are produced, the term Samskriti gains a great kind of relevance, and it's spread only in the past 100, 200 years. Prior to that, you look at it, you would not find the extensive usage of this word. There is a word samskara for which you will find references. Samskrita, yes, but Samskriti becomes something which is a specifically connoted term, keeping the English culture in mind, but with a certain conscious kind of what my professor, Professor Navjyoti Singh, used to call as quote-unquote domesticating. In a sense where we have our Constitution of India written in English, but then the Constituent Assembly members wanted to mean what is there written in English, but to be meaning in Indian languages. So there is a very, very conscious kind of an effort to try and make the English language not as something which is imposed on us, but as something which is Indian. So in this conscious process, what indeed happened is that we have come to a stage where the recognition of the active sense of producing new words in our own languages turned to pick the bhava in English and try to superimpose it on our own languages. And this is a case where it is also stated that whatever are the traditional kind of understanding, the paramparika prayogas which are existent, they do not have ability to capture what we see today. How do we describe the current world in the light of whatever are the paramparika prayogas? So in the sense, if one has to talk about software, what type of a padartha is it? Is it a prithvi padartha? Is it a agni padartha? Is it an akasha padartha? Because you find, say, all kinds of padarthas that we exist are to be spoken of in terms of the panchabhutas. So in this panchabhutatmaka prapancha, what kind of padartha is it? Where do we place it? So this kind of a discussion where we try to speak about what is having a great kind of a currency is not to be seen, say, something that we notice in the language of our own shastras, or even in the rigorous Sanskrit tradition that we have. There are efforts of this that are made, which are possibly, say, present not in discourse, but certainly by some certain scholars who have spent lifetimes together to try and see how one can try and quote unquote domesticate to try and convey our bhava. Why is this focus on the bhava? Because Yaskacharya tried to convey to us that bhava pradhanam akhyatam. When we use a word and the conscious knowledge of it is known to us, that is the shabda and artha and the inalienable relation, the avinabhava sambandha is also known. How do we ensure that that which we speak is also brought to practice? This is something that is inherent in our Samskriti, in the sense that the way in which we look at language, we do not want to keep it aside from our own practice. And this sense of usage also came in the point of our Hindi references that we find, achar, vichar. They two, both of them come together. So if achar and vichar, so in a sense there's a way by which one can say that vicharheen achar becomes nishprana. For acharheen vichar, वो तो सिर्फ मनोमय होगी. It doesn't have any kind of translation to reality that we are present in. So achara, vichara, both of them become important. But the moment you bring in achara, there's always a question. You can't come up with new kind of a intelligible idea. There is no possibility of a creative kind of an input that can come in. This is a kind of a charge that is put against parampara also. Because they say, well, Vaiseshikas have defined Shatpadarthi, and there is no kind of, of course, one or two cases where they have expanded the sense of the categories of reality that are there. But does these categories of reality in Vaiseshika Darsana, does it have the ability to capture what we today have in what we are experiencing? That's a question that is there. But it also is a case that with the presence of these already pre-existent categories, if we are unable to, say, describe it, is it a constraint that we are actually chained together with? Or is it something which is a good part? This is a question that indeed has to be considered, because the sense by which we look at the modern world, it has always paid an emphasis on individuality, creativity, originality, whereas these three are things which are supposedly absent in a culture, in a cultural tradition. And the moment you use the word tradition and the parampara, then naturally these are things supposedly to be missing out of it. But we have also noticed possibly that some of the kind of developments that can take, which do not take constraints into mind, can as well be something which can lead to consequences which are things which are beyond our control, that we cannot possibly be happy with. Which is why, say, the samyak that I tried to point out earlier is to be that the nature of the consequent results are indeed going to be good for us, not just in the short term, but also in the very long term. More often than not, the very long term is something that gets missed. So in this sense, if one has to look at the constraint which is imposed or which is brought in within our language, is to be considered as an important aspect. How do we try and take that as a advantage is a question that requires special kind of training in itself. And that's something that is desirable because we have this traditional point of yojaka, who is actually very difficult to find. So, amantram aksharo nasti. So, how do we ensure that every akshara becomes a mantra? That requires a certain kind of a yojana. And I do hope that, say, that kind of education is what we move towards. So my response to, say, the point that is raised is that constraints are always things which indicate or create a kind of a hurdle which, when transcended, once we accept, is going to give us something which is more substantive. Because without that kind of a constraint, the flow is something which wouldn't actually find appropriate question to be responded to. So to work within these kind of parameters, rather than, say, having a point which is which is say without any kind of boundaries, is a part to be avoided, is a kind of wisdom that we carry, and that possibly is part of the trying to make Samskriti as a eternal factor in our approach to domesticate culture was a conscious effort made by many of our legendary thinkers, whether it be Sri Aurobindo or Swami Vivekananda. You name them, you will find that they have consciously tried to use the English word culture to meet Samyak Shobhana Kriti, so that the kind of relation that it will have is eternal, rather than say something that is limited to the times that we are part of. This exercise, I believe, is a continuing thing which one has to engage with, and that is where we probably make a movement forward also.
Thanks, Pranav, and thanks for bringing up the reference to Aurobindo as well. That I think that will be a good reference to talk about, particularly in terms of what you mentioned on domesticating, and also in conveying Bharatiya Bhava or Indian ideas and our own Samskriti in English. So I'd like to have Sampatji talk a bit about Aurobindo's work on Savitri, specifically on how language was used there to convey values that belong to our Samskriti, and how this whole process of creativity, reiteration, and all of that happened there.
Yeah, thank you, Pranav, for bringing out few important points. First thing is that when we are talking about, I'll come back to Sri Aurobindo Savitri and things, but before that, let me explain you that there is a whole lot of difference between culture and Samskriti, and then why it is necessary that we start reflecting and using the words of our own language. So when you say culture, usually people think the rites, rituals, costumes, and everything that is in practice outwardly. But the Samskriti doesn't refer to that. Samskriti is extremely deep. Samskriti is all about the vision that one has with regard to life, with regard to oneself, with regard to the collectivity. Samskriti is all about how does one organize life, the life of a nation, life of an individual, around that drishti. So drishti is important in Samskriti. So it is an untranslatable word. You cannot translate Samskriti as culture. For example, like if you ask, like if you take culture as simply rites, rituals, and festivals, and all outward happenings, how do you define when you say he is a cultured man in English itself? So does it mean that the person who is performing more rituals, rites, and then participating in more festivals and celebrating is a cultured man? Very difficult. So I would like to mention, before I come to the point which Hallie had mentioned about language, and with reference to Sri Aurobindo and his Savitri and English, because in the matter of language, we have to be extremely careful in using the words and the right kind of words. So then it creates, it makes us conscious of the Samskriti, and Bhasha and Samskriti cannot be separated from each other, because Bhasha is the Samskriti Vahika. So it is a vehicle, it is a carrier of the Samskriti. So Bhasha is important, therefore we have to focus and start using our own words. So coming back to who is a man of culture, and there are many definitions, many people who have commented about it, but one of the definitions which Gundapaji of Karnataka, Kannada, he has given is very beautifully. He says there are 5 characteristic features of a man of culture, and once we understand that, we know what is the value of Samskriti and what Samskriti. So look at the word Samskriti, Samskara, Samskrita, all are all belonging to the same family, same group. So he says the first sign and symptom of a man of culture is swasthana parijnana, that one must understand oneself, one's own status, who is one. So where is my status? What is my limitation? He was talking about, Pranav was talking about the constraints. So I should understand the maryada in which I have to work, I have to function. Every one of us, we have to follow the maryada. So there is, if there is maryada langhana, then there is no samskriti expressed through our action. So one has to work within the maryada. So therefore one has to know the swasthana parijnana. The second aspect he says is parengita parigrahana. Beautiful words, parengita parigrahana. That one has to know others' intention. So someone may be saying something but not intending that. For example, when Krishna was killed by a hunter called Jara, so Jara Savara, Jara hunter, he after throwing the arrow, hitting the arrow to Krishna, so he comes back. I mean, he to find out what he has killed. So he found that it is Krishna, and then he says, "My God, what a mahapapa I have done! What a great sin I have incurred by killing the Yuga Purusha, by killing the avatar." So he repents, he prostrates himself at the feet of Krishna and then says, "Please save me, I have done a mahapapa by killing you." So Krishna says that, no, you have not done any mahapapa. Tell me, did you ever intend to kill me? Was there in your bhavana that you have killed me? He says, no. He says, the papa is not decided by your karma, but the papa is decided by your bhavana. Your work may be a good work outwardly. It may sound like a good work. You are a philanthropist. You have done a good work by contributing something. But if your intention is wrong, so you are incurring more papa by doing a good work. You are not doing any punya. So it is the bhavana which decides. So that bhavana, that intention, so parengita parigrahana, so we have to be very vivekavan in understanding what is the intention of others. So that's the sign and symptom of a man of culture. So swasthana parijnana, parengita parigrahana. Then it says that one has to have a swartha niyamana. Swartha niyamana means like one has to regulate, one has to have control over one's own vested interest. It is not that you have to be completely selfless, but you should not have vested interest for everything. Swartha niyamana. Then there is another important thing which decides what Samskriti is. He says samanvaya drishti. In your drishti, there has to be samanvayata. There has to be equality, equanimity, samanvaya drishti, a synthetic vision, you can say, equal vision, which is most important part of our Samskriti. You look at the Vedas, Upanishads, or any Shastra, Samanya Drishti. It is because of that Samanya Drishti, a person is called a Rishi. One has to have that Rishi's vision. Then finally he says that there has to be Sarasata. Sarasata in life, that your life has to be Saras. So if there is no Sarasata, there has to be some kind of grace. There has to be some kind of amiability. So if all these things are not there, then one is not called a man of culture, and that decides what Samskriti is. And that samskara, that Samskriti of a person whose signs and symptoms are these: swasthana parijnana, parengita parigrahana, swartha niyamana, samanmaya drishti, and sarasata. These 5 signs and symptoms given by Gundapaji in his book on culture. So it's a must-read book for every one of you, every one of us. Okay. So his language, this person's language, also expresses that inner Samskriti. And when we talk about language, our language has to be refined. A refined language alone is called Samskrita. There is no specific language which will be Samskrita. The Samskrita is not the name of the language, it is an epithet of the language. Because the word Samskrita is a past passive participle, which is an adjective. An adjective cannot become a name. It actually qualifies what that language is. In the same way, any language can be Samskrita. Any language can be raised from its level of inertia and then raise it to the level of a mantra, level of refinement, level of inertia. So that's what you find what Halley was referring to, and he wanted me to specifically talk about it when we are talking about Bhasha and Samskriti. So how the Bhasha itself reflects that deeper Samskriti. So in the case of Sri Aurobindo, in the case of many spiritually realized people, spiritual masters, those who are using English as a language. So today we say that, oh, we are too much of English we are using, we should come back and then use. So English has these limitations and that limitations. It's all fine. It is limited because of our limited consciousness. If an expanded consciousness or realized person uses even a language, for example, Kabir. Kabir never studied Sanskrit. He was unpad. But whatever Kabir has written carries that sanskar, carries that samskriti, has that mantric value. People do research on that. He expresses every Vedic truth in a language with which he was familiar. But he raised by that language from the level of inertia to the level of mantra. Look at Tulsidas. Look at many other people who have used that. I mean, recently, why do you go back even to Kabir? Just think of Haladhara Nag, who was given Padma Shri few years before from Odisha. So he doesn't have any qualification, very unassuming person. But today, universities are doing PhD on what he has written. But he's an uneducated man, illiterate man. But he's given Padma Shri. People are doing PhD on his. And look at his language. It carries his language. He has raised the same language. Many people are using Odia, but all are not given Padma Shri. All are not gaining that kind of prominence what Haladhara Nag's writing is gaining. So what Sri Aurobindo has done in his Savitri, especially if you have not heard about it, Sri Aurobindo, who was born in 1872 and left his body in 1950. So one of the greatest yogis and philosophers and freedom fighters of this last century. So his epic poem is called Savitri. It is the longest poem in any language, you can say, in English especially. Longest poem in English. So far, no one in the world has produced such a long poem. Based on the Savitri and Satyavan episode, his entire spiritual realization he is describing through the story of Savitri and Satyavan in English, 24,000 lines. And here you can see that every line of Savitri carries that mantric force. He has raised English from the level of inertia to the level of mantra, where the mother, his spiritual collaborator, says that Savitri is the Veda of the future, the Veda of the future. So this is how we see that a rishi has the power, has immense power to raise the language, raise anything from the level of inertia to the level of mantra, and then expresses the deeper Samskriti through the Bhasha. And that is why our Rishi tradition concentrates on one aspect, that every one of us, every conscious being, every human being, the very purpose for which we are here on the earth is to manifest that Rishitva that we have within us. And Swami Vivekananda says, by manifesting that Rishitva, then only we do something good to the world. That is the very purpose of life. That is the very purpose of education. And here Bhasha and Samskriti both play a prominent role in manifesting that Rishitva, so then our Rishi tradition continues.
Thanks, Sampathji. Thanks a lot for the great elaboration on the topic. So I know we're running short of time now, and this is a topic that is so dense that we can go on and on for this for days together. But then we have to draw the line somewhere. So we'll probably stop here and then open this up for questions. We've spoken about a lot on Bhasha, on Sanskriti, and now even on how English can be used as a vehicle for some of our own ideas, but it is about raising our own consciousness and our own level in that process. So I think we can have questions from the audience, and we'll have Sampathji and Pranav elaborate and answer those. it need not necessarily be on exactly what we spoke. It can be on the broad area of Bhasha and Sanskriti.
So language gets elevated to a level where we can call it Sanskrit for that matter. So why, does it not lose its contact with the masses, with the people at the ground level, which is probably what happened to language Sanskrit?
Yeah, so it again depends upon every one of us. So whether we keep that level intact or we lose it. So that happens with every language. Every language has its own, story of evolution. Evolution in the sense like it has its own story of creation and evolution, birth, growth and development. And it also has its own history of how it is used, how it is declined. That is what is the purpose, that when you have an evolved language, and when that evolved language is used consciously, it raises the consciousness, collective consciousness to a higher level. But when we start using the language just as a means of communication, it remains at the communication level, and we do not use the language for anything else, then it loses its force. It loses its force for the community, for the people who use it in that way just as a means of communication. So we have to always think that beyond communication, there is a role of language and we must manifest it in our use.
Yeah, but then it loses its
Definitely, it loses
relevance in
its,
that sense.
yes, it loses not its relevance, but it loses its,
Purity for that.
not purity. It doesn't lose. The language will not lose, but we do not experience that purity and then take advantage of the purity, force, and the flavor of the language to transform ourselves, individually and collectively. So there is a whole, lot of resource which is available to us, but we don't make use of it. That's what happens. And we don't make use of the resources, it becomes a dead capital.
Exactly, like
Yes.
Tulsidas had to write
Absolutely.
Ramcharit Manas in people's language.
That's okay. So what is important is to bring out the truth.
Yeah.
In that case, language also becomes just a vehicle, but yet the force that a language carries. Now see, he brought it out in the people's language, but how many people are using Awadhi now?
Yeah, so somebody will have to redefine again.
Yes, redefine again, right.
I had one a different kind of a response to the same question. There's a reasonably famous song from Bollywood, "Hum to bhai jaise hain waise rahenge," and goes on. And the key aspect of Samskriti has always been about transcending from where you are to a higher level. Always there's a call for utkarsha. Ut itself is to indicate that, say, you are raising your level. So how does one know what is the raising of one's level? So to take from D.V. Gundappa's man of culture references, one of the things, if I just pick, Swartha Niyamana. Now, Swartha may be translated to English as some selfishness. But the sense of the self, insofar as, say, our own language goes, the sense of swa. Swa might begin with, say, my body, my family, my surroundings, and so on. But this swa can also include the entire cosmos. So when that swa actually raises from, say, being within my vicinity to an entire expanse of the entire cosmos, that all of this is mine. It is in this sense that you would find the usage, Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So when would somebody become that Udara Charita? When, say, this swa, the circle of the swa that we are currently in, it actually expands to the entire cosmos, and this is not meant to be a part where we say, hum to bhai jaise hain waise rahenge. It's always a point about how do we raise from where you are to a higher world. And are there means to do that? There are n number of things. Now, you would have taken the reference to Ramcharitmanas. Let me take a reference to Nannaya, who transcreated Mahabharata into Telugu. He actually writes, in fact, the shloka with which he begins is in Sanskrit. Ramcharitmanas also begins with several Sanskrit shlokas. And then the Avathi part comes in. So why am I doing it in Telugu is a question that Nannaya poses, and he responds. He says that the last word in the man of culture was having the sarasata. Rasa swadana is something that you would find when you have a way by which the bhava that is present inherently in every human being, which is raised to that of a sthayi bhava, when they can actually experience the same thing in the kind of created situation that you are placed in. And at that time, the bliss, which is, the sense that is also present in the Vedic injunction of raso vaisaha. So that sense of rasa is what is actually brought out. So that rasa is something which is a thing that is to be relished by everybody. And when people are disconnected from it, how do I take it to them? It is for that reason that I am actually writing Mahabharata in Telugu, was a response that Nannaya gave. Now, this is something that can actually be taken to every time also. Because without sarasata, in the sense of rasaswadana, the sense of relishment of where we are, and also the possible expansion of swa, from the limited circle to the expanse that one can think of in the entire cosmos, that doesn't happen because people might as well always be suffering from the wants which are created by artha and kama. To transcend this too is where you would actually, because everybody has artha and kama, which basically means that we are constrained by wealth. So one might say that I do not have enough wealth, so somebody else has this. But at one moment, at least for some moments, I actually forget all these. And then I am raising myself. So the entire procedure by which you have Nataka, Kavya, and so on was meant to actually create those kinds of environments where people can raise themselves for that particular moment in time when they are completely immersed into it. Which is possibly why Bhartrihari says, Sangeeta Sahitya Kala Vihinaha Sakshat Pasuhu Pucha Vishanahinaha. It's basically to say that everybody must have some sense of Sangeeta, Sahitya, and Kala as a matter of interest which expands, and to ensure that their swa actually expands. So the fact that it is losing relevance is not what is the point. It is probably the case that it is gaining relevance always more and more, precisely because it actually calls for it. What is missing is to be provided, and where we are must be raised. So the Utkarsha is the key for any kind of understanding of Samskriti. Without the sense of Utkarsha, we can't possibly think of Samskriti. So where does Utkarsha lie, and what is the path for Utkarsha? Thankfully, we have great paramparas that we can be part of, and possibly each one of us is also part of that parampara. If only we actually try and look deeper, then that thing comes out.
May I?
I think there's
Hello.
a question. Can you take the
So
last
fascinating deliberation, and I believe much needed, given the state that we are in, given the and certainly in the state that we are in the context of the world that we live in, and how India looks to go ahead in the future. And I'm glad you mentioned a reference. You had a reference of the popular culture, the song that you referred. And in many ways, would you not say that in many ways, it's a popular culture that has kind of diluted the whole, significance of not just Bhasha, but our rich cultural tradition that we always kind of refer to. Would you not say that that has happened? And certainly what needs to probably happen going forward is somewhere that needs to get percolated into the popular culture. So it's, otherwise we'll have literary fests happening, and and then it'll be talked about, but it probably won't go down and carry forward to the next generation. So would you say that would you say that that is what needs to probably happen?
I believe the situation is a little more complex. So, on one point, let me point out that in the 1960s, there was a conscious effort made by All India Radio to have programs. In fact, All India Radio Vijayawada had a very conscious kind of effort where they started a program called Bhakti Ranjani, because Sri Lanka was actually playing the popular songs from movies, and they wanted to have a parallel kind of a program which would not touch any of the songs from the movies.
Right.
In fact, that was the kind of an instruction given by the All India Radio, the program manager at that time, and that brought in a remarkable set of people together. So Dr. Mangalampalli Balamurali Krishna, Devalapalli Krishna Shastri, each of them, they came together and they actually created new songs in the language of the common people, but with deep meaning. And they also brought out many of the kirtanas of Annamacharya, Purandaradasa. See, each of these, which were written in common folk language, but still had roots in the parampara strongly, and it became a super hit program.
Right.
To actually create such kind of a thing calls for great scholarship and also innovation, which is where I mentioned that constraint is something which is enabling. It's actually a strength rather than something which is a weakness. So to start thinking that, say, to be considering that constraints that are imposed from tradition is something which is a constraining factor, which would mean that creativity cannot happen. This is a live example that how Bhakti Ranjani program became a super hit and the kind of literature that got produced. But in terms of the modern Bollywood, the song itself, Hum to bhai jaise hain, waise rahenge, if one actually takes a slightly philosophical look of how things are, we are placed in a very say, complex situation where there are some ideas which are flowing in from the West. They ask us to be not what we are. And there are forces also, forces coming from wealth, from kind of influences, from variety of ways to try and change from what we are. And in such a situation, to say hum to bhai jaise hai waise rahenge is actually an act of preservation. So
Right.
how do we preserve what we have and yet transcend is a challenge that we indeed have to face. So the reason for complexity is because we are not actually in isolation. There are many things happening, many agendas floating. So in that sense of agendas that we have, how do we as well say further ourselves? So that's where I guess say the possibility of creativity and innovation also can come in.
Also, in terms of what I was kind of referring to is there a possibility to popularize? So, in the past we used to have Kavi Sammelans, even Hasya Kavi Sammelans, and I think the Hasya Kavi Sammelan was the popular way of kind of reaching or getting that through to people. It's a pleasure to listen to, if you look at old songs, even Bollywood songs, there was a lot more richness to the lyric, which somehow one feels may have, got diluted. Of course, with time, with the new kind of people, the newer, the younger people, perhaps it needs to reach the masses and so on. But is there a way in which you can still, because I do believe that people still want to listen to rich stuff. It's a pleasure to listen to pure language. When you hear it, it's a pleasure to listen to Amitabh Bachchan, talk in pure Hindi, personally. So is there an opportunity there? I'm just wondering, just curious.
I do believe that there is always an opportunity for Utkarsha. The only point is, are we seizing the opportunity?
Right.
So where do we seize the opportunity, and are we creating an environment where the opportunity can be seized? It's a question.
Thank you.
Pranav,
Point is, like in the process of popularization, we should not lose the spirit.
so Sampatji and Pranav will be around, so I think if some of you have more questions, you can always catch up with them after this. And I know we have Santoshji waiting here, so we should not keep him waiting for too long. Yeah. So thank you. I think thanks to the VESIM team for hosting this, and thanks to Atharva Forum also for making this possible. We're all here through Atharva Forum, and I think I just request you all that if topics like this interest you, do subscribe to Atharva Forum on YouTube, and you'll probably get to know more and more on topics like this by various talks and lectures there. Thank you. Thanks.
Please wait for 2 minutes. Thank you so much, Athava Forum and all their panelists over here who made wonderful remarks and shared the knowledge, facts, wisdom about language and its deep curiosities. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Dr. Sandeep Bharadwaj to come on stage and felicitate all three panelists over here.
Thanks, sir.
Pleasure. Next session. How many of you have seen Game of Thrones? What happens when Game of Thrones meet an aspiration, a purpose of life to serve the largest, one of the largest country in the world? We can hear such words from the master strategists we have these days in one of the largest political party of this world. I'm talking about no one else but Shri B.L. Santosh ji. B.L. Santosh ji is currently National General Secretary of Bharatiya Janata Party from 15 July 2019. Santosh ji has worked as BJP's Karnataka General Secretary for 8 years. During that, BJP was in power in 2008 to 2013. Later, he was also appointed as National Joint General Secretary in charge of Southern States in 2014. Santosh ji hails from Udupi district in Karnataka. Since childhood, he was a bright student, interested in social reconstruction movements and Bharat's contribution to ancient and modern world. He has studied instrumentation technology in Devaganagari in Karnataka. Immediately after his education, he started as RSS Pracharak, full-time worker in 1993. He held various responsibilities in Sangh at Mysuru, Shivamoga, and later in Bangalore. He was featured as 14th place in Indian Express list of 100 most powerful Indian in 2022. I think that rank must have gone much higher and will keep going much higher. So with a humble note, I welcome you on the stage. Please have a loud cheer for B.L. Santosh ji. This session will have a straight conversation with a persona who needs no introduction, our director, Dr. Satish Morji. This session will talk about Bharat at 75. India is celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, a festival which is also known to be Amrit Kal for next 25 years. Please do listen them that how our great nation is going to transform into, I don't know what billion-dollar industry, where it will go into cultural reform, how the nation will progress. Ask your questions and get ready to hear from the words from the master strategist of BJP and our own director, sir. Sir, session is open.
Namaste. Generally, when we talk about politics, we have various opinions in our mind. In many of the movies, popular movies, they show politicians in a very different light. whereas politics and economics together, they create the fortune for the country. And if you have an able and committed leadership in the country moves forward. And whenever we have a weak leadership in the country, it becomes very difficult for the survival of the country, and it goes down in the annals of history. अपने देश ने ऐसी परिस्थिति बहुत बार देखी है, और 1947 की स्वतंत्रता के पहले करीब 800,000 वर्ष लगातार संघर्ष किया है। 2014 के बाद से एक स्ट्रॉन्ग लीडरशिप हमको अपने देश में दिखाई देती है, लेकिन ऐसी लीडरशिप के पीछे जो लोग होते हैं, जो पूरी स्ट्रेटेजी बनाते हैं, जो उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करते हैं, जो पूरा संगठन संभालते हैं, उनके ऊपर यह निर्भर करता है कि कैसे वो लीडरशिप को प्रोजेक्ट कर सकते हैं। संतोष जी जो है वो अखिल भारतीय संगठन मंत्री की तरह से वो बीजेपी में काम करते हैं। पूरा ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल नेटवर्क ऑफ बीजेपी इन द होल कंट्री, ही इज द हेड ऑफ द होल संगठन। सो वी आर वेरी फॉर्चुनेट टू हैव हिम with us, and this particular session is about India at 75. So how do we look at the past history of our country since 1947 till today in 75 years? So I will begin by asking this first question to him, that what is his perception about the developments of past 75 years, and how we have moved, how we have progressed in those 75 years. Santosh ji.
Thank you, Dr. Satish ji. Namaste everybody, good afternoon also. Thank you for inviting me here on behalf of Vivekanand Education Society, and to be amongst you, आप सभी के बीच में थोड़े समय बिताने का, because any time among the young generation is always a lively time, and it feels like you also gone a little younger. In the field that I work, it is always working with the elderly people, working with the senior people. So whenever I go to campus, I also feel that I am a little bit younger that day at least. Today I am sandwiched between two sessions. One scholarly session that was had the panelists from 3 different areas who were scholarly people, and the discussion was also scholarly. And the next session is one of the biggest achiever of this country, who is the maker, creator of everything that is Super 30. Between that, I am a social activist present in front of you, sitting in front of you. So India at 75, as Dr. Satish mentioned, it is a great occasion for any country. It is a great occasion for any civilization. We have traveled very far in these last 75 years. It is not that it has been an uneventful era of 75 years. A country of this size, a society of this size, keeping together for last 75 years amidst a churning global scenario in itself is a big achievement. That is number one. We have kept our borders intact except for a few here and there aberrations. The second one is the democracy. The hats off to the population of the country, every single person of this country, and also the makers of the constitution, right from Bharat Ratna Dr. Ambedkar to every one of his associates, and also the systems that are there in the country, political parties, election commission, parliament, Supreme Court, and everybody who have kept the clock of democracy ticking over a period of last 75 years, except for a brief period of 2.5 years from 75 to 77. So when you look at the adjoining countries, not only minions like Pakistan or somebody, when you look at the bigger countries also which are there in our neighborhoods, none of the countries had such a peaceful 75 years or such a achieving 75 years, or they didn't have democracy right from day one till the 75th year also, and our clock is ticking and it will go a long way also. So one is that we have been together as a society, and we have been together as a country for the last 75 years, except for a few aberrations here and there during the war. And the second one is, we have upheld the spirit of democracy across the board, not only elections. I don't limit democracy only to elections. Across the spectrum, across the social field, we have maintained the spirit of democracy in every single institution. That collectiveness, that consensus, the sense of consensus across the thing. But at the same time, we could have been still better. That is always there. We would have been still better if for some specific reasons. So what makes me feel happy is we are still ticking and we are together. Our democracy is intact. And what makes me little sad is we would have been still better if not for certain reasons. If we can cope up with if we can solve those certain reasons, I think India during this Amrit Kal, as the Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned, it is not only India at 75. So how India should be at India at 100. And between India at 75 and India at 100, Prime Minister has termed this as Amrit Kal. These 25 years as Amrit Kal. The resolve, not only the resolve, the mean, and also the way. All the three things have to be firmed up so that we will be something different when India reaches at 100. This is our resolve. And this is what we have to look forward to in next 25 years.
In general terms, we can say that we are very happy that India completed 75 years after independence and we survived, whereas many other countries didn't survive. We have seen what is happening in Pakistan. IMF refused to give them loan and the team went back. So we have done much better than our neighbors, or actually they were part of India. But if we really want to do honest evaluation of what happened in our country in last 75 years, honest evaluation in the form of political policies, in terms of economic policies, in terms of education policies. So how do we evaluate those 75 years? How much we have lost or how much we have gained in those 75 years? So as a strategist, political strategist, when you evaluate those 75 years, can you tell our students that where do we stand among those policy frameworks?
When you look at some of the countries, the biggest problem while comparing India to other countries is the very size. So many during Corona times, they were comparing our country with New Zealand. Many during our Corona times, for known reasons, they were comparing our country with Singapore. So this is a very big problem that we do because we don't have any country of the size of India and of the population of India when we compare. Not only the size and the population, even the diversity also. There may be very few countries in the world who are as diverse as India. Demographically as diverse as India, culturally as diverse as India, and living habits wise, it may be food or other things, as diverse as India. Looking at this diversity, number one, this size of the society and this size of the country, we could have done still better. In spite of this size and in spite of this diversity, we could have done still better is what I feel looking back. When I look back, I don't have the liberty that I have seen 60s, I have seen 70s. I don't have the liberty of telling that. Some among you have the liberty of telling that I have seen 60s, I have seen 70s. And I don't have the liberty of telling I have seen 60s, I have seen 70s. I was there in 70s, I didn't see 60s. But I have experienced 80s, I have experienced 90s, and I have seen how the country progressed because of the policy, and how the progress of the country was dwarfed because of the policy paralysis also. Again, when I tell these words, I want to be very conscious in this audience and in this campus. I don't want to sound political here. So I will not take any political party's name. I don't want to sound political. I have to be honest to the audience. I have to be honest to the campus also. But many a time, we encouraged mediocrity in our country, in our society. वो चलता है, तो fail होता है ना, चलता है. अचीव करता है ना, इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है. If somebody achieves, इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है. अगर मुझे भी इतना पैसा है तो, मुझे इतना भी पेरेंटिंग अगर ऐसा है तो, मुझे भी अच्छा कॉलेज में एडमिशन मिलता है तो मैं भी कर सकता था. तो इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है. तो looking lowly at the achievement and always embracing and praising mediocrity in under some other logic, I feel that we dwarfed a little when we could have gone little more further on. So while praising the mediocrity, instead of praising the efficiency, we have to tolerate mediocrity, not praise mediocrity. We have to tolerate it because not everybody can be efficient, not everybody can be intelligent. But that doesn't mean that you will always welcome or you will always worship mediocrity. If we would not have encouraged mediocrity in social life, if we would not have encouraged mediocrity in professional life because of certain quarters and certain logic, India would have been still more better economy-wise, India would have been still more better society-wise, India would have been still more better as a country-wise also. But of late, slowly the society and the system, slowly they are shedding away this idea of mediocrity. They are slowly going away from this idea of mediocrity and they have started practicing efficiency, they have started practicing achievement and also following the achievers also. That is a good thing. And if we would have done it during the initial years of our independent India, during 50s, 60s, 70s, we would have been still better. And I think the brain drain that we still mention, it would not have been there. That brain drain would not have been there at this point of time. But slowly we are waking up to the challenge and we are making up for the lost timings also.
Now that brings me to a question which is always there in our mind when you talked about brain drain. We created these big institutions like IITs, IIMs, but if I look back, most of the students pass out from IITs, they went to US in search of jobs. Because though we created institutes of excellence, but we did not create the environment for them to work in this country and utilize their creativity and innovation for the country. Because nobody would like to leave the country and go to an unknown place. They went there to pursue a dream which they could not pursue here. So why this kind of environment was there where these people had to go abroad? And even today we find that a lot of students, more than 2 lakh students every year, they are going abroad for higher studies and also for work. So what is it that if we do an honest evaluation of what is happening in last 75 years, that we have landed this kind of situation?
It is not the individuals who failed this country, it is the system that failed this country. Individuals were always achievers here, individuals were always doers, they got the things done also. But because of the system that was prevalent, that I already mentioned in the last thing, that anything average, it was being eulogized here. Anything mediocrity, it was worshipped here. Anything ordinary, it was seen as something great. And so the people who didn't do it or who didn't believe it, for want of opportunities, they went abroad. It is not that for some selfish reason. Not everybody who goes abroad is a money-making mission or money-maker. Many people, for want of satisfaction also, they travel abroad. So that satisfaction in oneself, after getting some money, after making some money, it is the satisfaction that matters. Everywhere it matters. So even in political life also, even in public life also, even in family life also, after certain achievements, it is the satisfaction that matters. So we keep on hearing work satisfaction, job satisfaction words. For that satisfaction, many people went abroad. So it is a system that failed over a period of 40, 50 years. But late 90s and early to the 21st century, I think the situation has turned around. Now if you look at the numbers may be more. The percentage of people who remain in the country and the percentage of people who come back to country, it is slowly rising. It is slowly rising. I can tell you tens of names, hundreds of individuals, either who remained in our country or who came back to our country after a certain point of time. Yes, still there is a long way to go, but I think the time has come now that everybody who is going abroad, they will have a rethink, and everybody there, they will have a thinking that why not back to India. Such situation is slowly arising.
Now again, continuing with the same line of thought, in last year's 15th August speech, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji talked about 5 pran. And in that one was that we have to remove all the signs of foreign rule and that kind of mentality. But what we find even today is that if somebody wants to apply for a job in say IIT or IIM, they are looking for people with some foreign PhD. they consider that any Indian degree, master's degree, PhD is useless, worthless. Until unless somebody publishes a paper in some foreign journal, we don't respect that person, and we don't even respect our own research journals. So how do we get over? I am just trying to evaluate those 75 years, that how we have created so much disrespect for our own education system and our own people with intelligence and hard work.
It is the colonial mindset that have brought us till here. Because of that colonial mindset, everything that is Western looks dearer to us. It is not that it is bad, but that doesn't mean everything West should look dearer also. Yesterday I was sitting with one of our architecture team for one of the buildings of my organization. Maybe hundreds of times I have asked the architecture people, your buildings look totally Indian, your buildings look totally local, but why people whom you depict there in around the building, they are always foreigners or foreign dressed? Does Indian people doesn't come to our buildings? Then they start laughing. नहीं नहीं नहीं, आपने जो बोल रहे वो ठीक है, लेकिन वो कंप्यूटर में वो ग्राफिक्स में नहीं मिलता है. वो ग्राफिक्स में थोड़ा गोरे लोग ही मिलते हैं, सूट बूट वाला ही मिलते हैं, मीडियम मैक्सी पहनने वाले ही मिलते हैं. ठीक है, एक दो आपत्ति नहीं है, लेकिन हमारे बिल्डिंग में साड़ी पहनने वाले, धोती पहनने वाले भी आते हैं या नहीं आते हैं? मैं पूछता हूँ उनको. Why not a mixture of it? And you see, you go to any, you have an architecture college here, you go to any of the architecture designs that you come take out of the computer or you design it, the people, hope you are understanding it, the people who will be standing there outside the building, they do it for summer, or the trees that are being planted outside the building, that is, everything is either British or American. Why? It is not a necessity. You can plant mango trees also there, whether you want to plant a mango tree or not, but you can show a mango tree there. You can show an Indian there who is a very professional. You can see an Indian. Not one of the drawings they show an Indian outside a building. Not one of the, you go and explore. You have an architecture college, if there are architecture faculty and member, you go and search there. This is colonial mindset. When Prime Minister mentions that we have to come out of colonial mindset, if anybody, any one of you, if you have traveled to Port Blair, and after Port Blair, if you have traveled to Radhanagar beach, if any one of you can travel to Lakshadweep and go to Bangaram beach there, never you will travel to any of the Western countries or any of the South Asian countries. It is one of the cleanest beach in the world, Radhanagar beach. One of the cleanest beach, one of the most attractive beaches in the country. It is one among the best 7 beaches across the globe. Radhanagar beach, it fares in 3rd number, in 3rd rank. But how many of us who are sitting here or who are outside this campus, they can tell the name of Radhanagar beach? Nobody tells. They can tell every other thing across they know Venice, they know Greece, they know Thailand, they know Singapore, everything. But Radhanagar will not be known. That has been the mindset of this country for a very long time. Very long time of this colonial mindset. Everything standard means that is a Western standard. No need. We too have standards. We too have standards. I'll just walk you through a small example. In all the wrestling competitions, around 15, 20, 25 years ago, in all the hockey competitions, around 30 years ago, Indians and Pakistanis used to come first or second. In all the wrestling competitions, Eastern and South Asian countries used to win. From grass, they changed the rules to mats. From mat, they changed the rules to turf. From turf, they changed the rules to green turf. Now, it is not the art of hockey that matters. It is the speed of hockey that matters. And in speed, we fell behind. Till 1980s, India used to reap gold in any of the competitions because the hockey, you see the exterior, photos of exterior, 60s and 70s. Hockey used to happen in grassland, grass grounds. Wrestling used to happen in open mud. But now everything has become artificial turf and slowly we started losing it. Many a time, the systems are also divided in such a way that you have to lose. Not only that you lose often, many a time the systems are also designed in such a way that you should lose. We need to come out of it. We need, unless we come out of it. Many a thing, many of the exams also, many of the standards also, many of the parameters also, many of the index also, many of the statistics also, it is designed in such a way that we will not win. We will not win. So Indian government now, It has taken a firm resolve that for every parameter of Western countries, we will devise on what is GDP. The concept of GDP, if any economic student is there, it looks farcical now. It looks farcical. So the government and the institutions and the scholars are thinking that to set up another standard of GDP based on the Indian model. So this colonial mindset, unless we shed it over, we can't create our standards. We have standards, not that everything we have is a standard, but we have standards. In many cases, we have to make up. In many procedures, we have to make up to the global standard, but we have capacity to do it. We have to slowly shed the colonial mindset and get on to the run so that we can also gain speed over a period of time.
Oh, that was a very, yeah. That was a very, very thought-provoking answer you gave, and a lot of things were going in my mind. So though I have a third question in my mind, but I will ask a question based on what you just now said. You talked about plantations. I remember that in Delhi, there used to be neem trees across the whole of Delhi. But in plantations, what we plant are the trees which are some foreign trees, and neem trees up there in the cities, you won't have mosquitoes. So everywhere we have beautiful trees, but from our own original plants, if we plant neem trees, we talked about mango trees. So these are the trees, they are also beautiful, but somehow we thought that the trees coming from abroad are more beautiful. You talked about GDP. Another thing comes to my mind is about employment. Everyone talks about the country's economic progress as employment generation, number of unemployed people. There is so much focus on employment, whereas our country used to be a country of people who were job givers. Very few people will go for employment. So these kind of parameters, how we are going to look at, what kind of strategies we are going to formulate, that we are not looking at employment, but we are looking at employment generation. So how do we go about it?
I want to just tell Dr. Satish ji, you are from an old Iran. The young friends who are sitting here, none of them are worried about jobs or government jobs. Hope you agree with me. Now both the government jobs are also a thing of the past, and also permanent jobs are also a thing of the past. The way our younger generation is forward-looking and adventurous. I have many young friends with me who shift their jobs every once in 3 years or 4 years, looking for a better challenge, not better perks. For better challenges. नहीं हो गया वहाँ का project कम दिखता है. I want more challenges. I have people who have taken sabbatical from their work for 3 years and going for social entrepreneurship. I have seen 3 couples who are working in Auroville. I asked them, they were walking, the couple were walking along with their children. Told, from where you come? Bangalore. From where you come? The second couple, they came from Hyderabad. What you are doing here? No, we have taken a sabbatical for 3 years. We are doing social entrepreneurship here. We have a little bit of financial security and we are doing social entrepreneurship here, looking after the warehouse of Auroville, looking after the infrastructure of Auroville and all. Now, the country has slowly graduated from job seekers to job givers. The kind of startup revolution that is happening across the board. I am not sweepingly telling that 100% of our young generation has moved over from job seekers to job generation. But the culture has totally changed. The culture has totally changed. In my Bangalore office, behind my office, there is a small cafeteria. Somebody took me there. नहीं नहीं एक बढ़िया cafeteria है वहाँ चाय पियेंगे. I say one day they took me to evening. I went there, had a chai, had some snacks which were out of the world, something out of the box, not regular idli, regular dosa, regular misal bhaji. Lekin based on the same theme, little more differently. And while my friend was paying the bill, I just had a conversation with the person there. The cafeteria was managed by a girl of the age of 23 years. She was 23 years old, out of college. Invested a little money there and she has started a cafeteria. A girl of 23 years coming from a traditional family and starting a cafeteria. All these things are anti to each other. This is and she is a successful entrepreneur. It has been 3 years. Whenever I go to Bangalore, if I have a leisurely time in the evening, if I have to chat with somebody, I don't go to any bigger cafeteria. I go there and sit there. Very beautiful place. If anybody goes to Malleshwaram, that cafeteria is on 15th cross. You can experiment going there. This is the younger generation of today. During the corona time, the same younger generation went, joined their hands with Maruti. Maruti had the infrastructure. This younger generation had the idea. They were the startup, and they started manufacturing ventilators for the country's hospitals. The infrastructure was there with Maruti, and these people had the idea. The younger generation of Mumbai, they joined hands with Mahindra. And now you can see people wearing t-shirt and jeans, they are traveling fields, in the fields, certifying the organic product, doing survey through the drone technology, providing mechanical support, machinery support to the farmer. They are traveling across the villages now. The culture has changed. The culture of employment has changed. Things have changed for better. Now it has to be done across the board so that instead of applying, people will start receiving the applications. So this culture has started, it what I feel, and the revolution has started.
Santosh ji, as a Sangathan Mantri of BJP, you move all over the country, from one corner to another all the time, continuously on the move. And you can share some of your experiences just now which you shared. And this change is happening slowly in the younger generation. And you are also part of the ruling party, which is almost ruling in 14, 15 states and also at the center. So what are the contours of the future strategies where this changing mindset we are going to utilize for the benefit of the country? So what are the policies, new initiatives you have in mind or your party has in mind which will help this country to progress?
One thing that the institutions and the heads of institutions across the board, one thing is for sure that they want to shake up the whole system, and it is being done, and you are feeling it also. Whether it may be NEP, whether it may be skill development, whether it may be drone policy, whether it may be opening up the space industry to private sector, or I invite you, every one of my young friends who here, don't look at governance with something negative tag. Look at the Gati Shakti Yojana that is being undertaken by the government. One single word I will put in front of you. If you want to do a small research, you do it on Gati Shakti Yojana. Where the under bridges have to be built, where the over bridges have to be built, over a period of time, where the mobile towers have to be placed, so that the business environment will pick up. Not till now, till yesteryear, 2 or 3 years, mobile towers used to be placed because of the political pressure. तो यहाँ BL संतोष बड़ा नेता है, तो उनके कहने पर यहाँ मोबाइल टावर डाल दीजिए, तो उनके घर के पास का ओवर ब्रिज करा दीजिए, उनके घर के ऑफिस के पास एक अंडर ब्रिज करा दीजिए. ये रियल एस्टेट का टाइकून है, तो वहाँ अंडर पास किए तो उनका लैंड के लिए वैल्यू बढ़ता है. गति शक्ति योजना is not that way individual centric. If you go to skill development, 3 crore people over a period of next 5 years, they will be digitally skilled in this country who are digitally unskilled till now. 3 crore people over a period of next 5 years, they will be digitally skilled because the country cannot miss this bus. The country missed the second bus. It cannot miss the third digital bus. So this is the kind of shake-up that is being done now. The number of unicorns that are being created, being developed, the number of drone industry that is being done here. Hope last January, after the Republic Day parade, last January, during the this thing, what is that, beating the retreat. If you had seen the drone performance, you would have wonderstruck by looking at it. The professionalism of that drone performance. 500 drones at a time. 500 drones at a time, not 2 drones, 3 drones, 4 drones for sample. 500 drones at a time. Managed by Indian-made software from IIT Delhi. Flawless. Flawless, they performed on the skies of Delhi. That was something hitherto unnoticed in India. Unnoticed in India. We were flying many things, but that kind of professionalism by a Indian software and executed 100%, that is India now. This shake-up is happening across the board. I don't only compliment the government for it. Don't think that I am making a political statement. Yes, don't look at politics and governance with an anathema. It is also performing for better, but at the same time, the country as a whole and the society as a whole is also waking up to its potential and not challenge. I'm underlining, it is waking up to its potential. Every single institution, every single arm of the society is also waking up to the potential. And I see better here through this shake-up. And this shake-up is happening a lot. This is what we require in this Amrit Kal.
I think you can all clap on that. Again, one question out of this question set. When you talked about IIT Delhi performing those drones, because they get funding from the government, IIT Chennai, recently I heard that they have developed an operating system through which all our computers will be operated, rather than these Microsoft and these current softwares which are developed by American companies. They can develop that because they get funding from the government. But institutions like ours, which are self-financed institutions, why it is so, and we also have talented students who can work if provided funding is available. So why government does not provide funding to private institutions who want to do research?
I cannot comment on it because I don't know the inside out of the policy regarding that thing. But government is not hesitant to provide this. The whole concept of Atal Innovation Lab, it is almost 80% in private institutions. Maybe it may be at the lower level, Atal Innovation Lab. But government is not against private institutions or private sector. It wants to move hand in hand with the private sectors also. Exact the policy, whether they will provide funds for a private institution or not, I will let you know after getting the information. But government is not against it. Our whole concept of Atal Innovation Lab, they are 80% private institution oriented.
No, that is there in the draft, the National Education Policy 2020, which has been declared by the government. It says that in future there will be research universities, there will be teaching universities, and there will be degree giving autonomous institutions. And nowhere government is distinguishing them as a government universities or private universities. They are looking at the same thing. So I understand that yes, the government's thinking is that they don't want to differentiate between government and private universities. But why this draft was published in 2020 and today we are in 2023? So what is it which is holding back the implementation of this national education policy?
I don't fully agree with this holding back. Again, I will go back to my first sentence, the size and the diversity of this country. We have around 11 parties who are managing the states, and state education is a concurrent subject. There is DMK government also, there is a communist government in Kerala also, there are multiple other governments in the states. So a large portion of the country, a large area of the country, a large population of the country, it is being managed by some other parties. So when I tell some other parties, they are ideologically also on the different page, and they don't even subscribe to what we are ideologically, and they don't even walk on the center line also. They are away from the center line also. Again, I don't tell it is a mistake or something else. People will understand and vote the party that they want. So in most of those states, NEP 2020 is not being implemented, not because of the quality of NEP in 2020 or the content of NEP 2020, but because of the politics behind it. The rest of the things across the country that has been doing it, what the central government or the union government has to do it, many of the institutions are already in place. The curriculum framework, which has to be modified, I think by April end or May end, that will also be enforced. Many of the universities who have the wherewithal to do it, they have already implemented 2020, because in NEP, 70% of the job is for the state governments and the institutions. Only 30% is for the union government. And wherever there is a union government, we wanted 36 months for implementation of it to roll out the first phase of it. I think within 36 months of implementation, we will be able to roll it out is what I feel. Yes, for political reason, in many cases the progress has been hindered, but it is not for academic reason, but it's largely for political and ideological reasons.
Our country's population, when Modi ji came to power in 2014, he used to say, 125 crore लोगों को मैं represent करता हूँ. And yesterday I was hearing him, he was in Mumbai, he said 140 crore लोगों को मैं represent करता हूँ. from 2014 to 2023, the population of the country has increased from 125 crore to 140 crore. Whatever progress we are making, if this is the way population is increasing, how we are going to sustain our growth and development? So are there any policy issues or something which will handle these demographic issues?
Yes, the size of the population has a huge bearing on the resources that we have. But at the same time, since many among you are economy students, our economy is sustaining because of this population. Because of the domestic consumption, our economy is still healthy, and because of the domestic. Whichever the country doesn't have domestic consumption, they are all withering away as an economical force. And because of our population, our economic condition is stable also. But I can't go on telling the same logic over a period of next 10 or 20 years. There is a huge pressure on natural resources because of this population. But there is very less from on the government side, considering the demography of our country and various cultures of our country in controlling the growth of population. The government will not have much say, because if the government puts its hands into it, everything else, all other logics will come into force. It may be religion, it may be culture, it may be custom, or it may be ideology. Those things will come up. Society as a whole should wake up, and will wake up, is what I tell them. Because we have seen last 1000 years or 2000 years, no challenge has gone without facing it. The society has faced those challenges. The biggest thing is, it is not the demography that is the biggest thing, the size and the effect on the natural resources that is proving very costly. Just while entering into the campus, I was just commenting to Sanjay Upadhyay, telling that if not for the sea near us, Mumbai should have crumbled any time back, long back. This kind of pressure, especially the urbanization pressure, the pressure on the villages is still lesser. But the urban pressure, it's getting little too much. Government is also trying very hard for diversification, but with less success. Because the population get concentrated where there is economical activity, and government will not have too much control on the economical activity. It can create industrial parks, but industrial park moves out only if there is an ecosystem. If there is no ecosystem, say moving out the software industry out of Pune and Bangalore, it's very difficult. You can set up IT parks in some other city, but the industry will not move out. Because of the ecosystem, it will not move out. It is a challenge for us. Society as a whole has to accept this as a challenge, and how to handle it. Along with the government, we have to decide it.
The same population issue also leads me to the next question. Our country has varied n number of languages, Boli, and culture, faith, religion, and it is very easy for enemies of the nation to start creating divisions in the society and manufacture social conflicts which doesn't exist. So as a head of a political party, how do you view these manufactured social conflicts, and how do you plan to handle them? Because this is going to be the biggest hurdle in our country's progress.
See, this is not a natural trait of this country to search for divisions, thrive on divisions, and encourage divisions is not a natural trait of this country. The natural trait of this country is inclusiveness. I tell with all conviction, I tell with all humility, that the natural trait of our country is inclusiveness. But over a period of last 100, 200 years, because of the British rule, and because of the thriving on divisiveness concept of Britisher, you have to understand one thing. Along with all the invaders who came to our country, it is not that the artist or somebody else came. It is not, artists did not come with them, or the business people also did not come with them. You search for answers in history and story. It is the anthropologists who came along with them during the first lot. Of all the things, why anthropologists? Business you can understand, army you can understand, religious people you can understand. But why Europeans took anthropologists everywhere they went? They went to Africa, they took anthropologists along with them. They came to Asia, they took anthropologists along with them. They went to American continent, they took anthropologists. They study and search for divisions. This has been the European way of managing the countries. And we fell prey to it. In our country, language is a problem in Belgavi. River is a problem between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Caste is a problem in many of the eastern states. For every caste, for every tribe, they want a separate state. For everything, there is a division here. For everything is a division. And we fell prey to it as a society also. Not that only somebody did and we were safely away from it. We fell prey to it. Every second year, there will be a huge problem in Belgavi or across the borders between Maharashtra and Karnataka. Who is right or who is wrong? I am not there here to decide who is right and who is wrong. But there exists a problem. Every year after December, there will be a crisis between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. These people will tell that we don't have water, and they will tell that water is our right. And based on which survey? Based on the Britishers' survey. After India, there has been no survey about it. Recently, one community people came to me. I took them to the concerned authorities, and that authority told, does your tribe mentioned as a nomadic tribe in 1909 census? He asked them. I just kept on, I stopped talking and I started listening there. And in the whole of the country, the OBC status, SC status and ST status, it is being decided by a survey done, by a census done by Britishers in 1909. We are not relying on our survey of 1947 or 1957 or 2001. We are relying on a survey created by Britishers. And Britishers created known division for known reasons. Whole of Northeast. If you go to Northeast, you will be wonderstruck. There is clashes between villages, let alone states. Let alone states. But the inclusiveness has been the trait of Indian society. The present government, especially under the present leader, carrying everybody together in spite of differences. You have to carry. If there is a difference, you can't wish away any part of the society or any individual out of your ecosystem. You have to carry everybody together. Sahana vavatu, sahano bunakto. It is the way it goes on. You have to travel together, you have to live together, you have to eat together, you have to think together, and you have to iron out the differences. And there is no walking over a line. It is walking between the boundaries. Many a times we start telling you have to walk over a line. You can't walk over a line. Only an individual can walk over a line. A society and a civilization, it have to walk between the boundaries. So as we start walking between the boundaries instead of line, or between the boundaries instead of outside the boundary, slowly these division will start getting erased. And the social movement and many of the administrative exercises, if they can join hands together, easily we can overcome this. But it is a huge challenge. No? We haven't overcome it because because of my organizational reasons I had done it. There are more than 4,000 types of divisive activities that are happening in our country, which are over the surface, not under the surface. I don't know how many thousand are there below the surface. Over the surface. More than 4,000 kinds of divisive activities. It is happening in every language, between every languages. I am telling you, in every language and between every languages, inside every state, across every border, along every river, beyond, along a couple of rivers also, along with every caste. Whenever an election comes, whenever a census happens, then start division among society. New verbatims are created, new logics are created. There has been a huge effort to divide this country. And luckily, so I told during the beginning of the conversation to Dr. Satish that we are keeping together in itself a big success. We should not be satisfied there, but we are keeping together in itself is a big success. When you look at this I can quote you hundreds of them. I have a by heart of that. And I have a list of more than 4,000 divisive activities that are happening across this country. We have done it for organizational reason, because we too have a social responsibility. We have to tide over it, and it is a huge challenge.
As a political party, people look at long-term and short-term strategies. Short-term strategy is just to win election. And any segmentation of the society based on language or caste or something benefits certain political parties And for their short-term gains, they create this, okay, let us just look at the next election, and based on the candidate's caste or something, they start creating such divisions in the society. But the BJP is looking at the long-term goal of inclusiveness and uniting the party. But BJP also has to win the election. So how do you balance the strategies between the short-term goals and long-term goals?
We have to win elections. If you don't win elections, then you can't do whatever you are dreaming about. That inclusiveness, that collectiveness, that development-oriented country, that Vishwaguru. You can't do it without doing an election. We are not in some kind of an organization who puts forward some papers and keeps quiet. We are there as practitioners of democracy. But we take care that whatever strategies कुछ भी जो रणनीति होता है, that will not create more differences, number one. That will not aggravate the already aggravated situation wherever it is there. If possible, try to solve it during election times also. Like, I'm just coming here from Tripura. There is a huge demand from an organization there for a separate tribal land there, Tipra land. You can't carve out a Tipra land because Tipra land, their demand is come from a big portion of Tripura, a small portion of Assam, and a small portion from Bangladesh. Who am I to assure anybody about a Tipra land which has a little bit of land piece from Bangladesh where we don't have any control? So if you look at the manifesto of our party, other than land, other than Tipra land, we have tried to address many of the issues which are connected with the tribal society, their customary laws, the encroachments by other people, the encroachment of tribal land by other people, the development fund to the tribal land, the administration of the tribal area, which were hitherto neglected. One is the assimilation. The second one is the justice. Assimilation with a larger group, but providing justice to a smaller group. These two are parts of democracy. You have to assimilate. In the name of assimilation, you cannot do roughshod over any section of the society. You have to give justice to them. What has been due to them. In one of the states which we were studying just now, there was a huge agitation in one part of that state. For known reasons, I don't want to dwell on the name of the state. You please bear with me. So when we started studying why this agitation is gaining momentum, when we came to know that that particular part of the state, it has 47% of the population. It has 38% of the geography, but 7% of the funds. This is not justice. This is not justice. We immediately have started addressing, and the movement has died down. And we will provide justice. 7% of the funds for 47% of the population. Now, okay, 47% will not get 47%. That's a different thing. But 47% should somewhere get at least 25-30%. This is giving justice. One is the process of assimilation through honoring every identity, every custom, every section of the society. And the second one is by giving justice to every section of the society wherever possible with full commitment. With full commitment. These two have been hallmarks of our political party, and we have been trying to do it day in and day out. One is the assimilation, the second one is providing justice.
But the biggest challenge is the identity politics. And everyone has some identity that I should be known as I say Gujarati or Marathi or maybe this caste or that caste. And because everyone is identified with an identity, and that identity becomes the point of segmentation of society. So when we go from bottom to top, we find these very, very major issues. And though the Kashmir problem, we see that it is nearly getting solved, and we don't know the things which are happening there. But on the newspaper and media, we find that it is very quiet. But at the same time, we see that problems arising in Punjab because of certain policies of people there, or problems arising in Tamil Nadu. So how do we look at these problems as a common citizen of this country? How do we view them, and how do we cope with such problems?
Being the biggest political party and ruling over a large section of the country, it is our responsibility also to deal with all these things. You can't escape from reality also. And politics or governance or social life is never a straight line or a straight path. You have to navigate. So there is no traveling here. You start a vehicle, you sit inside the vehicle, and the vehicle takes you over a straight line. Is not possible. So there is every kind of disturbances here, every kind of obstacles here. So you have to navigate in between that. And many a times, tactically, sometimes you have to retreat also. Like the farm bill, we tactically retreated. Why? It was beautifully summed up in a sentence of the Prime Minister on that day, on the day of Guru Nanak Jayanti, that मैंने किसानों के हित में कानून को लाया और देश के हित में कानून को वापस ले रहा हूँ. It is one of the biggest political statement. I urge and request all the younger friends to ponder over it. किसानों के हित में कानून को लाए, लेकिन देश के हित में हमने इसको वापस ले आए. So many times a little bit of tactical retreat also we have to do it. We do that also. But as I told you in my earlier answer, the process of assimilation, we do it as a political party and as a governance. We try to address every single identity of this country, and our leader and our Prime Minister has been a master of it. Because of his long social life, he has been a master of it. He is less of a politician and he is more of a social worker. So we have the guidance and we have the ideology to see to it that this dissension and these differences are addressed. But still a large section, in a large section of our, large portion of our country, the challenges remain. Northeast, there are challenges, but slowly. For example, there are more than 137 border issues between Assam and the neighboring states. 137 border issues between Assam and neighbor, Assam, Arunachal, Assam, Meghalaya, Assam, Nagaland, Assam, Tripura, Assam, Mizoram. Every single state, Assam has got a border dispute. But I will tell you with pride about my party and my party's governance that out of these 137, more than 75 have been solved in last 365 days, last 1 year. Now there are interstate committees with Arunachal Pradesh, interstate committee with Nagaland, interstate committee with Meghalaya, interstate committee with Tripura for solving these problems. Only Mizoram is left. If we form an interstate committee with Mizoram also, I think another 10-20 will be over across the tableland. And these 137 border disputes have been pending for last 40 years. And not that people didn't have time to solve it. They wanted them to remain so on. They wanted them to remain so on. We don't want to... a leader is the one who unties the knots, not builds up the knots, encourages the knots. A leader is the one person who unties the knots. And we have been doing it over a period of last 10-12 years across the spectrum wherever we are in governance, and we will try to do so also.
From my side, the last question before I throw the questions for the audience. It is a little personal question. In our life, even if we face a little problem, we get worried and we get disturbed and we have a lot of anxiety attacks and so many things. You talked about these 4,000 problems which you are aware of, which is happening in the country, and you are touring all over the country, uniting people, trying to solve these problems. So as an individual working for the organization, how do you handle yourself and keep calm and continue to working with the same purpose and commitment, because that is what all our young students sitting here who are going to be in business and going to be problem solvers, what they can learn from you, how to remain calm and continue to work in spite of so many problems around you.
But working at solving those problems and facing and rising up to the challenge, I want to tell jokingly to Dr. Satish sir, it is very easy compared to bringing consensus in your house over a item for the breakfast. तो घर में उपमा बनाना है या परोठा बनाना है, डोसा बनाना है, कभी भी consensus नहीं होता है. हमारे बीच में उससे ज़्यादा consensus होता है. So our job is little easier. No, it is part of the, it is part of life, it is part of challenge, nothing very great in it. More than me or more than people at my level, it is our leaders who face huge problems. But the society as a whole, like look at Corona. In this country, yes, Modi ji did many things, with the other leaders weren't able to do it. The biggest thing is he soothed the country in a wonderful manner. But along with that, the society also joined its hands. You will not be knowing, because in our country, the media is always interested in many of the other things which are not necessary to society. Swami Narayan Pant, you know, Bab's institution, many of you know here, which is has wonderful following in Gujarat. During Corona times, just study one project again, I am telling, the impact of one project. They prepared 40 lakh laddus over a period of 3 months. Some among you, you started smiling. I agree with your smile. 40 lakhs laddus over a period of 3 months. They packed three in a pack and distributed only to pregnant women, carrying women across Gujarat. Then I was also wondering when I heard the news that these people prepared laddus, they are distributing it only to pregnant women. Why only pregnant women? And why only laddu? Both were a question mark to me also. I also didn't understand what was the motive behind it. Then I asked one of the sannyasis of the ashram. He told that खाने के लिए बहुत कम मिल रहा है, खाना दिन में 3 बार बहुत लोगों को नहीं मिल रहा है. उस समय में अगर carrying women, if they don't get healthy food, it will be have it bearing on the yet to be born child. तो उनको हम क्या मदद कर सकते हैं? तो रोज उनको खाना खिलाना, वो हमारे बात में इतना बड़ी व्यवस्था नहीं है, आखिरी गांव में. तो हमने सोचा कि लड्डू बनाएंगे, लड्डू में थोड़ा ज्यादा ड्राई फ्रूट डालेंगे. We made it 2 times, 3 times dry fruit, and we have distributed, and we have requested those mothers, this is not prasadam, this is nutritious food, only you have to eat, you should not distribute it. ये भी उस सन्यासी ने मुझे कहा. That sant, he told to me that we have requested every single woman to eat it rather than distribute it, because it is always women's culture that whatever she gets, she distributes. And even, you know, if you get it from a temple, then you have to distribute it. First of all, she is a woman, then she is a devotee. Now we have requested them not to distribute it, eat to herself, because it will have a bearing on the yet to be born child. This is our country. This is our country. So in this country, if you have a little bit of commitment, these 4,000 differences or 4,000 divisive politics, we will face it over a period of time, because we have faced crores of such differences from long time in our civilization. We will face it henceforth also. But this society is intact, and it helps us in one of our endeavors. So with that, we will be able to overcome these 4,000 differences or divisive movements also.
So this was a very illuminating session for all of us, that rather than just managing an organization, how do you manage such a large organization with more than 12 crore members and so many office bearers and workers, and keep on motivating them. Now I would request from audiences, we will take some 3 or 4 questions, but I would prefer first priorities to students. If students have any questions in mind, please raise your hand and ask the question. Yes, yeah. Mic, please give mic.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Vishal Jadhav. I am from Vivekanand Institute of Management, MMS. What I have observed is, from the past several years, India has gathered pace in several walks of society, maybe cultural, economical, social. What I also feel is, there are several people, domestically and internationally, that are they have an integrated nexus, and they always try to demean what we are progressing in. history has been a testimonial that whenever Bharat, India has progressed, India has progressed and it has shared its progress along with others also. Knowing this fact also, why are there some people that they always, we hear a word toolkit. They always try to do some activity that can demean India's progress and always show the negative impacts towards the entire world. And also, the same people who are behind our Prime Minister Modi ji from the year 2002, then the same people now are behind India as a whole. So can you please throw some light on that why they are indulged in such activities?
No, it is human psychology. It is not against the sun. If you clean, sit down, please. There will always be such elements in society. You can't wish away. There will always be Shurpanakish. There will always be Mantaras. There will always be Shakunis in society. There will always be there. You can't wish away. World is not white or black. Life is always grey. It is not either white or it is black. There can't be only good people. There will not be only only bad people any time. It is always in between. And the struggle over a period of lakhs of years for the culture is, for the society is, to see that good prevails over the bad. One thing be damn sure that if you are getting a first rank, there will be somebody who is jealous of you. There will be somebody who is jealous of you. Don't cultivate hatred towards them. There will be somebody who is jealous of you, along with many people who admire your achievement also. To keep yourself healthy, both in mind and physics, don't feel hatred for such people. Because in society, at every turn of event, there will be Shakunis, there will be Shurpanakas, there will be Mantaras, they will always be there. I am just quoting you the known characters. And you can substitute them for the characters in your life. If somebody is cleaning in front of their house, there will be somebody who comes and empties their dustbin in front of their house. तो मेरा घर साफ रहना है तो जा करके डस्टबिन को दूसरे घर में एम्प्टी कर दो ऐसे रहता ही है and many a time people think it is government duty sometime. It is government duty. So in the same way it happens to leaderships also, it happens to organizations also. So all these things will be there. You put national emblem on top of the new parliament building, it gets into controversy. You prepare vaccine, you find out vaccine, you invent vaccine, that becomes a controversy. On January 17th, you announce vaccine for healthcare worker. It becomes a controversy telling that why Modi is not taking vaccine today. It was announced for health workers. Karnataka health minister can take because he is a doctor. Tamil Nadu health minister took because he was a doctor. Modi is not a doctor to take. On February 2nd, it was announced for people above 60 years with comorbidities. He was the first person on 5:30. But why he didn't take on January 17th? क्योंकि वो केवल पानी है. It is nothing but water. So Modi is not taking it. उसको लिया तो आप मर जाएंगे. इसके लिए मोदी नहीं लेते हैं. तो ये तो समाज में हमेशा के लिए रहेगा. It will always be there. Not only for Modi, but it will be there for you also. That's why I told you, if you are getting a first rank, along with admirer, there will be a person who is jealous also. There will be a lecturer. Not only students, it will be my student didn't get the first rank, her student is getting the first rank. It is not against you, it is against her colleague. There will be a parent who is jealous of you, my child didn't get it, his child is getting it. It is among the parents. It is not against you, it is amongst the parents, it is amongst the faculty, it is amongst the college, it will always be there. Don't develop hatred because of that. Sympathize with them. See that, if possible, see that they will develop a larger mindset. But such things will always be there. Toolkits are a part of our social life. And the new word for that ecosystem is toolkit. So 20 years back it was something else. Today it is a toolkit. And tomorrow it may be something else. But it will always be there. The only thing is that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. This sentence should always be remembered. You can't lay back and save your independence. Eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. If you are independent, then you have to be cautious about it so that to maintain it forever. It will always be there. Take it easy little.
Thank you, sir.
A very good afternoon, sir. My name is Himanshu. I am PGDM first year student. So as you talked about all the challenges that you go through, all the positive things you go to as a politician, all the future aspects that you go through, that you're looking forward in coming years. So why politics as a career is not advisable to us as a younger generations? Any light on this?
No, who told it is not advisable?
Because I actually, in a personal opinion, people have never told me to be a politician. Why aren't you thinking about to be a politician? As a management student, there are challenges that we are going to face in coming. So politics is the thing that is intact with everything. Opportunities, challenge, future, everything. So why people are not advising us to be a politician? This is my question for you.
None of the parents, stay down please. None of the parents advise you to become a police officer also. 99.9999% of the society doesn't advise their children to become military personnel. Near 100%, they won't advise their children to become sadhus, sannyasis or anything. In the same way, your parents will not advise you to become politicians also. They advise what they know, or they advise what they have heard, or they advise what they have imagined. And in that, a biggest effect or the influence is from the ecosystem also. Like Dr. Satish mentioned during this initial mentioning, a particular kind of characters are created about politicians in cinema also. A particular kind of narrative is being created about police also. A particular kind of things is being created about the sadhus, sannyasis, archakas, pujaris also in cinema, especially in Bollywood cinema. Especially in it. Young people are required in politics. Professional people are required in politics. Good people are required in politics. Doers are required in politics. And there are hundreds of them in politics already. There are hundreds of them. You have a deputy chief minister in your state. He is no less than any professional of this state. Compare him to any one of the professionals in your state across Mumbai. He is no less professional. There are many young politicians. There are many young person across the spectrum. Across the political spectrum, I am telling, not only about Bharatiya Janata Party, of which I am the office bearer, but across the political spectrum, who are young and who are professional. My only request is, again I will tell, we want good people, because politics has a very strong role in framing country's future. I am not telling it is the only thing, because many politicians tell we are the only person framing the future. No, but it has got a very strong presence in framing the, say in framing the future of this country. And we require good people there. And now the moment has come where good people can also win election, where doers can also win election, where service-minded people can also enter politics. But only one word I have got a little different. It is not a career, please. It is a service. It is a service that we have to do through politics, and many people are doing it. Just because some people are not doing it, don't think that politics is a very bad thing. And since it has a large say over the society, good people should come to politics. And I invite you, and also I advise you also to come to politics. There is nothing wrong in it.
Yeah, next question.
हेलो सर. हेलो सर. आपको इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स का फ्यूचर क्या लगता है? और कोई
रिपीट वंस मोर, किसके बारे में क्या लगता है?
इंडियन पॉलिटिकल फ्यूचर क्या लगता है पॉलिटिक्स का? और कोई पॉलिटिकल क्राइसिस जब घटता है तो कैसे हैंडल करते हो? क्या प्रोसेस होती है कि मतलब कॉमन मैन को तो लगता है कि ये हो सकता है, लेकिन अंत में तो कोई अलग ही रिजल्ट आता है उसका.
आई थिंक वेरी जनरल क्वेश्चन है. अलग ही रिजल्ट आता है तो क्राइसिस हम कैसे हैंडल करते हैं इसको बता सकता हूँ.
आप कैसे
हम साथ में मिल करके कंसल्ट करते हैं, असाइन करते हैं कि आप यह करना है, तो क्राइसिस हैंडल करते हैं. लोग बहुत दूर से देखते हैं कि ये क्राइसिस ऐसे हैंडल होने वाला, कुछ और निकलता है. बहुत बार लोग मानते रहते हैं कि हम टूट जाएंगे, हम टूटेंगे नहीं. वी मैनेज आवरसेल्व्स. So we sit in a group. It is something like a family. How do you come to a decision in a family? It is not one single person, however strong he may be. तो वहाँ बात होते कंसल्टेशन होता है, कॉन्सेंसस बनता है, किसी को टास्क दिया जाता है, आप ये करिए, तो फीडबैक के साथ धीरे हम आगे बढ़ते हैं. This is the way we do it like in an Indian way, not a foreign way. We don't hire consultancies, We don't hire arbitrator. We don't hire some other people. We do it in an Indian way as a family.
We will have last question because Anand Kumarji is already here and we are all eagerly waiting also to hear him. So please last question.
सर कामंत की नीति सार के आधारित राष्ट्र में त्याग, सत्य और शौर्य इन तीन महागुणों की वृद्धि के लिए राजा की प्रयास हो ऐसा बताया गया है.
त्याग, शौर्य,
त्याग, सत्य, शौर्य. तो इन तीन महागुणों की वृद्धि के लिए क्या किया जाए, आपकी जो अनुभव है उससे आप क्या बताते हैं, ये जानना चाहता हूँ.
नंबर 1 is become an example for all these. सोसाइटी में प्रबोधन से बहुत होता नहीं है, मार्गदर्शन से बहुत होता नहीं है, but just by guiding or writing a book, society will not change or society will not follow on. There has to be a life behind a book. There has to be a life behind a discourse. If the life concurs with the book, if the book concurs with the life, if the talk or the pravachan or the saying or the word, they concur with the life, immediately society picks it up. Immediately society picks it up. Today, luckily, I am sitting on the same day, which is the martyrdom day of one of our organization, senior most person, Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya. Today is his dead body was found in Mughal Sarai railway station under very mysterious circumstances. Today was the day. So whatever we preach in our organization, you can immediately find an example in his Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya's life. If you talk about Tyaga, you can immediately find a resonance in Modiji's life. Again, I am not doing any political talk or resonance. I am not doing it. When I tell Tyaga or when I tell simple living, I have perfect examples in my organization to look up to. I don't need to look up to Ramayana. I don't need to look up to some other ashram. I don't lead up to some other society. I have in my organization to look up to. It may be Tyaga, it may be Satya, or it may be Shaurya. People who are leading the society, when they start becoming examples for it, the society also inculcates the same spirit. So the question is whether the people who are leading the organization, whether people who are leading the societies have that. So how to increase these three quotients of Tyaga, Satya and Shaurya in society is, the best way to do is to become the practitioners of Artha. And the best way to do it is create more examples of all three. Then only it can be multiplied. And happy that my organization and Indian society, both. My organization at a smaller level and Indian society at a larger level has always exhibited this trait as part of social value. Here Tyaga is not some individual value, it is a social value. Here Satya is a social value, people are encouraged. Shaurya is also a social value, it is a societal value. So it is being encouraged in our society. In some time it may have gone a little backward, on back foot. But the time has come now during Amrit Kal where all these three things are taking again the prime place in our society. It has been taking the prime place in our society. The very discourse that is happening here today in a management college among all modern looking and forward looking students here in itself is showing that these values are again returning to our society. These values are returning to our society. I'm not talking jokingly. In spite of amidst the institutional discipline, because in a college you have to come and sit where you are asked to, but you are listening intently to a man who is wearing dhoti, to a man who is wearing a vesti for such a long time, is in itself shows that not that the attire has to be the same. There is nothing in attire. There is nothing in attire. Once I have in the place where I was living in Bangalore, it had one of the schools for specially able children. So every day I used to meet those children also, parents also, teachers also. It was there in the first floor, I was living in the second floor. One day when I was standing in my balcony talking to somebody over phone, a young girl of around 19-20 years, ekdam modernly dressed up in 3/4 and sleeveless t-shirt. She stopped her vehicle in front of my building. None of such girls, such dressed girls, they come to our office. I just with curiosity, I started looking at her. So if they don't come to our office, then where she is coming? She went to the first floor. The specially abled children's school, it was producing many articles. In those articles material, one was the cover, they were manufacturing paper covers by those students. She purchased the paper cover. It was so much that she had to carry on her shoulder, on both the shoulders, with a girl of 19-20 years, wearing a 3/4 and a sleeveless t-shirt. She carried the covers on her shoulder, brought it to her scooty, she kept it on her, started, and she made her way home. If I just look at the attire and judge about her, then I will be wrong. She was the most service-oriented girl I would have ever seen, because she didn't bring any servants to carry the covers also. And she came to a specially abled children's school to purchase the cover. When you have such examples in our country, when you see such examples in my daily tour across the country, I don't go to a single campus every day. So my experiences are not uniform. They are diversified. And I feel very confident about the society, including what he has mentioned of all three, and Tyaga, Shaurya and Satya. The quotient, these are societal values in our country, and the leadership of the society across the spectrum and the society in itself, both are slowly making up their mind after a brief period of dip. There was a dip, a brief period of dip. Now it is being made up also, is what I feel.
It was a wonderful session. We heard the unheard insights of one of the largest political parties of the world, and the man himself, how he looks at this large population as one society, as one nation. Sir, thank you so much for gracing. I would like to ask Dr. Satish Modji to present his bestseller book and felicitate sir with a shawl.
I thanked him for a matching shawl.
Thank you so much, sir. Next session we are starting right now. He is a real life hero who has been portrayed on reel and made a Bollywood blockbuster. We are starting this session right now. The last and final session of 8th edition of VESIM Literati Fest. This session is said to be Seedha Samvad. The man on the stage needs no introduction, but for the sake of saying, I would like to recognize all the awards and accolades he has received till now. Shri Anand Kumarji is a Padma Shri award winning Indian mathematics educator, best known for his Super 30 program. He started in Patna, Bihar in 2002. He is known for coaching underprivileged students for JEE Main and JEE Advanced, the entrance examination for IITs. By 2018, 422 out of 510 students have made it to the IITs, and Discovery Channel showcased his work in a documentary. In 1992, Kumar began teaching mathematics from a rented classroom for 300 rupees a month and began this institute. His institute is known as the Ramanujan School of Mathematics. Within a year, his class grew from 2 students to 36, and after 3 years, almost 500 students had enrolled in this institution. Then in early 2000, when a poor student came to him seeking coaching, who couldn't afford the annual admission fee due to poverty, Sri Kumar was motivated to start the Super 30 program in 2002. From 2003 to 2017, 391 students passed out of 450 and went to IITs. Then there are facts and these are sheer numbers of success for the students coming from downtrodden society, for those who are underprivileged, and they get this kind of education and they get this kind of opportunity to make a mark, to make a dent in the universe. Sri Kumar has spoken at MIT and Harvard about his program for students from the underprivileged sections of Indian society. He and his school have been the subject of several smear campaigns, some of which have been carried out in Indian media sources. Obviously, everybody knows this, but yes, one of the real-life superstar, Hrithik Roshan, has played the real-life superstar Anand Kumar in the film called Super 30. We have seen the movie, but let's hear what goes in his real life. Please welcome for Sri Anand Kumar for a Seedha Samvad session.
विवेकानंद कॉलेज के फाउंडर, प्रोफेसर्स, टीचर्स और हमारे देश के आन बान शान और भविष्य प्यारे प्यारे छात्रा छात्राओं, मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई जब संदीप जी का कॉल आया कि आपको यहाँ आना है, सीधा संवाद करना है। मुझे पता नहीं था इस कार्यक्रम के बारे में, तो पहले हमने बोल दिया कि नहीं, हमारी व्यस्तता थी थोड़ी बहुत, तो हमने मना कर दिया कि भाई देखिए हम थोड़ा व्यस्त हैं। जब इस कार्यक्रम का उद्देश्य पता चला कि ये साहित्यिक जो उत्सव हो रहा है उसका उद्देश्य क्या है, युवाओं के बीच में ऐसा संदेश देना उद्देश्य है इसका, जिससे देश का एक नया स्वरूप सामने उभर के आए, या फिर पता चला कि यहाँ के जो युवा वर्ग है, जो तमाम लोग सुनने आए हैं, वो कहीं न कहीं उनके मन में एक क्रांति की बीज अंकुरित हो रही है, तो उसमें थोड़ा सा पानी खाद डाल के और आगे बढ़ाना है। जब ये उद्देश्य पता चला तो हमने तुरंत संदीप जी को कहा कि मैं एकदम आऊंगा, और आज मैं आपके सामने आ गया। बहुत बार बहुत सारे प्रोग्राम में, कार्यक्रम में जाने का मौका मिलता है, चाहे वो कार्यक्रम किसी कॉलेज का हो, किसी यूनिवर्सिटी का हो, विद्यार्थी परिषद का हो, उसमें हजारों लोगों की भीड़ होती है, हजारों लोग युवा होते हैं, सुनते हैं। लेकिन आज आके ज्यादा खुशी इसलिए हो रही है कि उतनी संख्या लोगों की नहीं है, तो स्वामी जी का बातें हमें याद आ गई कि मुझे देश को बदलने के लिए हजारों की भीड़ नहीं चाहिए, बल्कि 100 शेर चाहिए जो देश में बदलाव ला सके। तो मैं तमाम युवाओं में जो स्वामी जी ने जिस व्यक्तित्व की कल्पना की थी, वो व्यक्तित्व देख रहा हूं, मैं आपके सामने हूं। इस कार्यक्रम को मैं बहुत कार्यक्रम की तरह, बहुत फॉर्मेलिटी के साथ नहीं करना चाहता हूं। बस आपके मन में जो भी विचार है, जो भी ख्यालात है, आप पूछिए, कहीं से पढ़कर सुनकर नहीं, बल्कि हमारे जीवन में जो भी घटनाएं घटित है, जो भी मैंने अनुभव किया है, उस एक्सपीरियंस के आधार पर मैं आपको अपनी बात आपके सामने रखूंगा। तो आप पूछ सकते हैं सवाल। भाई सवाल लोग नहीं पूछते हैं दो कारणों से, या तो बहुत संकोच करते हैं, या जानकारी उनकी पूर्ण हो जाती है। तो अगर है तो पूछिए, आप पूछिए। हम लोग एकदम मन से, दिल से बात करेंगे, कोई फॉर्मेलिटी नहीं, एकदम आराम से आप सुनिए, जो मन में है पूछिए।
गुड मॉर्निंग सर। सर, आप एक टीचर हैं, मैं भी टीचर हूँ एक, मैं यहाँ पे मैनेजमेंट की प्रोफेसर हूँ। आपसे एक सवाल ये करना है कि आजकल के ज़माने में जहाँ पे बहुत विचलित मन है और लोगों का बहुत सारे मीडियाज़ हैं जहाँ पे मन ध्यान भटकता है, बच्चों के अंदर पढ़ने की और उसके अंदर एक इच्छा शक्ति जगाने के लिए क्या करना चाहिए?
ये बहुत बड़ी बात है और बहुत अच्छा सवाल है। दरअसल में दोस्तों ऐसी बातें हैं कि आज के तारीख में भटकाव बहुत है। ये आप गलत बोल रही है। जब हम छोटे थे उस समय भी भटकाव था। भटकाव का स्वरूप और दायरा बदल जा रहा है। हमारे माता पिताजी, हम लोग देखते थे कि उस समय समझाते थे कि बेटा मन लगा के पढ़, किताबों पर ध्यान दे, तू कॉमिक्स पढ़ता है, अमर चित्र कथा पढ़ता है, इससे कुछ लाभ होने वाला नहीं है, तुम किताबों पर ध्यान दो। और आसपास के तमाम बच्चे के साथ भी ऐसी ही घटनाएं घटती थी। अरे खेलने भाग गया, फुटबॉल के ग्राउंड में चला गया, अरे थोड़ा पढ़ाई पढ़, ऐसी ही आवाजें आती थी। समय बदला, अब माता पिता बच्चों से मोबाइल छीन रहे हैं और कह रहे हैं किताब पढ़, अमर चित्र कथा में अपनी भारत की विरासत पढ़, देख थोड़ा स्वस्थ रहेगा, फुटबॉल के मैदान में जा। तो समय और परिस्थिति के अनुसार चीजें मैडम बदलते रहती है, तो इसलिए आपको घबराने की जरूरत नहीं है। कुछ दिन बाद शायद ऐसा है 50 साल बाद, 40 साल बाद की माता पिता डांटे कि यार मोबाइल ले, इसी से खेल, इसी में उलझा, और क्या नई चीज कर रहा है। तो ये बदलाव जो है ना जिंदगी का, इसको स्वीकार करना चाहिए। हम लोग बदलाव स्वीकार नहीं करते हैं और अड़े हुए रहते हैं, वही दिक्कतें शुरू होती है। आप लोगों में से बहुत लोगों ने सुनी होगी ये बातें कि कई के माता पिता डांटते कि यार तुमको हमने क्या नहीं फैसिलिटी दिया, बताओ इतने अच्छे कॉलेज में, विवेकानंद कॉलेज में तुम्हारा नामांकन कराया, एडमिशन कराया, तुम्हारी फी दी, खाना पीना सब सारी चीजों की मैंने कोई भी परवाह नहीं की और आपको सुविधाएं दी। अरे यार हमारे जमाने में तो देख बच्चे, पंखा तक नहीं होता था, फैन नहीं था, साइकिल से मैं उतना किलोमीटर जाता था, और तुम क्या कर रहे हो सके कल के तारीख में आप अपने बच्चों को बोलिए कि मैं नॉर्मल एसी में जीता था, टूटी गाड़ी में चलता था, और तुम तो मर्सिडीज से नीचे कोई बात ही नहीं करो, उसको भी वैल्यू नहीं दे। तो बदलाव है, तो सबसे पहले बदलाव को स्वीकार करें या ना करें, लेकिन बदलाव ही जीवन का परम सत्य है, इसको समझने की जरूरत है। अब रही बात कि जिस व्यक्ति में, जिस आप लोगों में, युवाओं में, जिसमें स्वामी जी का ये ख्याल हम लोग डाल दिए शिक्षक कि देख तुम में अनंत शक्ति है। हम लोग क्या करते थे, 8वीं कक्षा में थे, 9वीं कक्षा में थे, तो पटना के गांधी मैदान में पुस्तक मेला लगता था, तो वहां जाते थे तो स्वामी जी की किताबें मिलती थी। 1 रुपया में छोटी सी किताब, पतली सी, लिखा हुआ रहता था स्वामी विवेकानंद के प्रमुख उपदेश। खरीद लिया किताब, 8वीं कक्षा में थे, पढ़े किताब में लिखी हुई थी बातें कि अगर तुम चाहो तो समुद्र को पी सकते हो। हमने कहा कि भाई स्वामी जी कितना बेकार की बातें बोलती है, 1 लोटा पानी पीने में पेट फट जाता है, समुद्र पीने की बात बोलते हैं। था कि भाई स्वामी जी बोलते थे कि भाई तुम चाहो तो पहाड़ को चकनाचूर कर दे सकते हो, टुकड़े टुकड़े कर सकते हो। लगता था भाई एक ईंट अगर मिल जाए तो उसको तोड़ना बहुत मुश्किल की बात है, तुम जिसे खटखटाओगे वो खुल जाएगा। हम सोचते थे कि भाई अमिताभ बच्चन जी के घर जाए खटखटाने तो गेट पर भी खटखटाने भी न देगा, ये क्या बेतुकी बात है। लेकिन दोस्तों धीरे धीरे जब हमने संघर्ष शुरू किया, अपनी पढ़ाई की, फिर बाद में शिक्षक का काम किया, स्टूडेंट लाइफ में ही धीरे धीरे एहसास हो गया था कि जो स्वामी जी बोलते हैं ना वो 100% सच बोलते हैं। चूंकि हम लोग अचानक उतनी बड़ी बात बोल देते हैं तो यकीन नहीं लगता है, और स्वामी जी या कोई भी बड़े लोग तुरंत कैसे स्टेप बाय स्टेप समझा सकते हो, तो अपना जो अपनी बातें हैं, अपना अनुभव आपके सामने रख रहे हैं। तो ऐसा हर आदमी जो यहाँ पर बैठे हुए हैं, कोई भी बच्चा बच्ची जो भी बैठे हुए, सबको मन में मैं ये विश्वास दिलाना चाहता हूँ कि जो स्वामी जी बोलते थे वो सत्य बोलते थे। आप लोग बहुत बड़े कुछ काम करके, बड़ा कुछ करके आप दुनिया में परिवर्तन ला सकते हैं, दुनिया में क्रांति ला सकते हैं, आप भारत को विश्व गुरु बना सकते हैं। ये विश्वास होना सबसे जरूरी है, और जिस दिन हम बच्चों में ये विश्वास डाल दें, उनकी छोटी छोटी सफलताओं को महिमा मंडित करके कि अच्छा ठीक है मैनेजमेंट के स्टूडेंट हो, जाओ आज 5 बच्चों का डिबेट है, ऑर्गेनाइज करो। कोई बच्ची गई ऑर्गेनाइज कर दी तो आप उसका उत्साह बढ़ा कि वाह तुम में ये है कैपेसिटी, ये है एबिलिटी, बहुत अच्छा, ठीक है जाओ आज शहर में कूड़ा बहुत है इस जगह पर, जाओ उसको सफाई के लिए तुम क्या कर सकते हो, बच्चे 10 विद्यार्थी मिलके या वहां मोहल्ले को जगाओ, वहां बच्चा कुछ भी काम करता है फोटो देता है उसको अप्रिशिएट करिए। तो छोटी छोटी सफलता है, उसका सक्सेस, उसकी खुशी को अगर आप सेलिब्रेट करेंगे, बच्चों को मोटिवेट करेंगे तो उनके मन में यह यकीन हो जाएगा कि स्वामी जी सच बोलते थे, मैं कुछ बहुत बड़ा कर सकता हूं, मैं भी माननीय प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी जैसा बन सकता हूं, राष्ट्रपति बन सकती हूं। ये मन में भावना आएगी और जिस दिन ये भावना आ जाती है उस दिन कोई भी बच्चा समय बर्बाद नहीं करता है। जब उसको मिशन मिल जाता है, जब उसका लक्ष्य सामने दिखाई पड़ता है तो अपनी अंतिम ताकत लगा देता है। तो निष्कर्ष ये है कि एज ए टीचर हम लोगों का काम है कि बच्चों में जो सोई प्रतिभा है उसको जगाएं, जो उनमें छिपी हुई प्रतिभा है, उनमें छिपा हुआ टैलेंट है, उसको उसका एहसास कराएं। जिस दिन एहसास करा देंगे उस दिन ही उनमें क्रांतिकारी घटना घटेगी। जिस दिन हम उनका एहसास करा देंगे उसी दिन बीज अंकुरित होगा। टाइम टाइम पर प्रोत्साहन देकर, जैसे हम लोग बीज जब अंकुरित होता है तो उसमें खाद पानी देते हैं, देते रहे उसको पनपने दे। और कभी कभी हम लोग कीटनाशक भी छिड़कते हैं। तो कोई गलत संगति में बच्चा आता है, कोई गलत काम करता है अति उत्साह में, तो उसको समझाएं। तो अगर टीचर अच्छा है तो कभी भी शिष्य खराब नहीं हो सकता है। अगर कोई शिष्य खराब हो गया तो हम टीचर को पूरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेनी चाहिए कि हम में ही कमी रही होगी, हम में ही कुछ खराबी होगी कि मैं इसकी जिंदगी में बदलाव नहीं ला सका। धन्यवाद।
Hello sir, as we know sir, you have cleared more than 30 students in IIT sir. Sir, in the movie we have saw that there were many obstacles which came in those and that at that step sir. So what was your daily motivation or inspiration after clearing all those 30 students in IIT?
बहुत अच्छा सवाल है। इन्होंने पूछा जितनी दिक्कतें आई, जितने मुश्किलें आई, तो उस मुश्किलों में अपने आप को बनाए रखना बड़ा कठिन है। लेकिन जिस दिन आपको, अभी जो पहला सवाल का जवाब था उससे मिलता जुलता है, जिस दिन आपको यकीन हो जाएगा कि तमाम चीजें टेम्पोररी है। गौतम बुद्ध, स्वामी विवेकानंद जी क्या बोलते थे? बोलते थे स्वामी जी कि हमेशा इस बात का ख्याल रखो कि कोई भी चीज अस्थाई नहीं है। दुख और सुख दोनों का एक साइकिल है, वो साइकिल चक्र घूमता है, जाड़ा गर्मी बरसात, जाड़ा गर्मी बरसात, वैसे ही दुख और सुख आता है। जो इंसान स्वामी जी की इस बात को समझ लिया कि दुख और सुख का आना है, कितना भी आप सक्सेसफुल आदमी बन जाइए, आप प्रधानमंत्री बन जाइए, राष्ट्रपति बन जाइए, देश का दुनिया का सबसे अमीर आदमी बन जाइए, आपको दुख पीछा नहीं छोड़ेगा। अभी एक आदमी हमको फोन किया, कहे भाई आप मेरा फोन, अभी की बात बता रहे, अभी गाड़ी में आ रहे थे, साथ में आप ही के स्टूडेंट थे, कहे भाई आप फोन नहीं उठाते हैं, क्या बात है, सुबह सुबह फोन किया। तो उनको हम बोले कि भाई गुमनाम था तो सुकून की थी जिंदगी, गुमनाम था तो सुकून की थी जिंदगी, अब मशहूर हुआ तो नींद भी नहीं है अपनी। तो जो दर्द है, कष्ट है, वो तो हमेशा बना रहेगा। हम एक बार बच्चे एक सवाल पूछा, बड़ा अच्छा सवाल आपने पूछा। एक मेरा बच्चा पढ़ रहा था सुपर 30, पूछा कि बड़ा कष्ट है सर, परेशानी है। हम कि यार अब क्या कष्ट है तुमको? पहले तो कष्ट था कि तुम्हारे पिताजी फेरी करते थे, आमदनी नहीं थी, कोई बड़े कोचिंग में नहीं जा सकते थे, अब क्या कष्ट है? तो तुम पढ़ रहे हो। तो नहीं सर, पढ़ते पढ़ते मन भटक जाता है, कभी मच्छर काटने लगता है, बड़ा मन डिस्टर्ब हो जाता है, कभी माता पिता की याद आ जाती है, लगता है गांव वापस चल जाए, बड़ा मन बेचैन है। उसको समझाए कि जैसे ऊर्जा है, एनर्जी, एनर्जी कभी लॉस नहीं होता है, अपना स्वरूप बदल लेता है, ठीक है? उसी तरह से दुख कभी जाता नहीं, अपना स्वरूप बदल देता है। आप पहले जब 10th में पढ़ते होंगे तो कुछ दुख का अलग विषय होगा, अभी पढ़ रहे हो तो कुछ संकट का अलग विषय होगा, तो विषय बदल रहा है। तो जिस दिन हम इस बात को स्वीकार कर ले कि जीवन में ऑड्स भी आएंगे, चैलेंजेज भी आएंगे, दुख भी आएगा, उस दिन हम लोग इससे निकल जाते हैं। और याद रखिएगा, हमारे फादर सिखाते थे, पिताजी, कि देख बेटा, जिंदगी में जितनी मुसीबतों का सामना करोगे, जितनी तकलीफों का सामना करोगे, उतनी ही बड़ी खुशी मिलेगी, उतनी ही बड़ी सफलता मिलेगी। अब तुम्हारे जीवन में आके तुमको डिस्टर्ब करेगा, तुमको परेशान करेगा, तुम पर हमला करेगा, तुमको बदनाम करेगा, जितना बड़ा विलेन आएगा उतना बड़ा हीरो निकलोगे। तो आप अपना काम करते रहे, मुसीबतें जितनी ज्यादा तकलीफ दें, आप इस सोच के, इस बात को सोच के खुश रहिए कि आने वाला कल हमारा है, आने वाले टाइम में इतनी खुशियां आने जा रही है कि हम उसको बटोर नहीं पाएंगे, उस खुशियों को समेट नहीं पाएंगे। ये सोचते रहिएगा तो दुख का टाइम पास हो जाएगा।
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, first of all, thank you for being here and sharing this moment with us. सर, मुझे ये पूछना था कि जैसे अभी हमारी स्टूडेंट लाइफ एंड होने में और हम कॉर्पोरेट में जाएंगे, रियल लाइफ में एप्लीकेशंस हम लोग जो भी हमने सीखा है आज तक वो सब, तो सर हमें कुछ ऐसी टिप्स चाहिए जो हम स्टूडेंट लाइफ में भी करते थे और जो अपने स्टूडेंट्स को ऑब्जर्व किया है बहुत सारा, तो ऐसी कोई टिप्स जो हमें लाइफ लॉन्ग अपने साथ ले जानी चाहिए, और कुछ स्ट्रैटेजीज अगर आप हमें बता सकें सक्सेसफुल होने के लिए।
ये भी बहुत अच्छा सवाल है। जैसे आप लोगों की पढ़ाई खत्म होने वाली है, आप कहीं बाहर की दुनिया में जा रहे हैं, कोई कॉरपोरेट्स में जा रहे हैं, कोई अपना स्टार्टअप करे, कुछ भी कर रहे हैं, सब काम का बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट एक ही होता है, चाहे वो स्टूडेंट लाइफ हो या नौकरी का जीवन हो, अपना कुछ नया करने का जीवन हो। हमेशा एक बात याद रखिएगा कि अगर कहीं भी आप हैं, किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में है, हमने यही पॉलिसी अपनाया, तो आपके साथ एक टीम काम करती है, 10 लोग, 5 लोग, 2 लोग, 4 लोग, टीम छोटी हो सकती है, बड़ी हो सकती है। हमेशा ख्याल रखिएगा कि अपने लोग जो आपके साथ हैं, आपके बड़े छोटे जो भी हैं, उनका उत्साह बढ़ाते रहिए, और कोई आपको नीचा दिखाने का प्रयास करे, ऐसे भी लोग मिलेंगे, जैसे अभी BL संतोष साहब बोले कि वो जो निगेटिव लोग हैं वो हमेशा बने रहते हैं समाज में, तो ऐसे लोग भी मिलेंगे। एकदम सही बोला कि जो आपको डिमोटिवेट करेंगे, आपको फ्रस्ट्रेट करेंगे, आपको हीन होने का एहसास दिलाएंगे, उनसे प्रभावित हुए बगैर, ये जैसे दुख नेचुरल है तो निगेटिव लोग भी नेचुरल है, इनका परवाह किए बगैर आप प्रोत्साहित करते रहिएगा दोनों सबको, आप पॉजिटिव करते रहिएगा लोगों को। और कभी कभी बड़ी सफलता मिले तो अपने टीम को बोलिए कि नहीं भाई, आपके चलते मिला, हमारी ये पॉलिसी। और अगर कभी बड़ा लॉस हो जाए, असफलता मिल जाए, लगे कि बहुत खराब हुआ, तो अपने पर रिस्क लेना चाहिए कि नहीं भाई, हमारी ही कोई गलती रही होगी। जैसे हमने भी मैडम को बोला कि अगर स्टूडेंट अच्छा नहीं करता तो अपने में कमी सोचिए कि क्या कमी रह गई, इसको कैसे आगे बढ़ाया जाए, और अगर अच्छा करता है तो क्रेडिट उनको दीजिए। ये पॉलिसी लेके कोई काम करिएगा तो बहुत सफल हो जाइएगा, आगे बढ़िएगा। दूसरा, हमेशा इस बात का ख्याल रखिएगा, एक बहुत अच्छा मंत्र दे रहे हैं जीवन से, आप अपने जीवन से आपको दे रहे हैं कि हमेशा देखिए कि दूसरों को कैसे हम खुशी दे सकते हैं, दूसरों को कैसे फायदा देख सकते हैं। हम देखा दोस्तों कि लाइफ में बहुत सफल होने के लिए, अब बहुत पीसफुल जिंदगी चले, इसके लिए जरूरी है कि आप दूसरे की खुशियों का ध्यान रखिए, तो नेचुरली आपको खुशी मिलती रहेगी लाइफ में। इसलिए जहां भी रहिए दूसरों को खुश रखिए, हाथ जोड़े रखिए, हम्बल रहिए, पोलाइट रहिए, कभी भी ईगो मत आने दीजिए। जब भी ईगो आए तो देखिए कि इस फील्ड में हमसे बहुत इतिहास में, वर्तमान में और इतिहास में एक से एक बड़े लोग हुए जिनको ईगो नहीं था। हम तो अभी बहुत छोटे कद में, हमें अब बहुत आगे बढ़ना है।
हेलो सर, मेरा सवाल है कि आप अपनी ज़िंदगी का कोई ऐसा प्रसंग जो आप शेयर करना चाहो जिसने आपके मतलब टर्निंग पॉइंट दे दिया हो लाइफ को, मतलब एक आधा दो प्रसंग। मतलब
फिल्म आप देखे होंगे कि नहीं देखे?
फिल्म देखे इसलिए पूछे।
तो उसमें है एक टर्निंग पॉइंट, लेकिन सच पूछते तो जीवन में हमेशा टर्निंग पॉइंट आते रहता है। एक टर्निंग पॉइंट आपको जीवन को हमेशा दूर तक नहीं लेके जा सकता है। तो टर्निंग पॉइंट हमेशा आता है, कोई ऐसी घटनाएं घटती है जो आपको प्रेरित करती है। कभी कभी अच्छी घटनाएं भी प्रेरित करती है, कभी कभी दुखद कर देने वाली घटनाएं भी चुनौती पूर्ण उसको लेने के लिए आपको प्रेरित करती। तो ऐसी काफी घटनाएं हैं। बहुत बार जब मुझे सम्मान मिलता है तब मुझे लगता है कि नहीं, मुझे अच्छा काम करना चाहिए, हमारी जिम्मेवारियां बढ़ गई हैं। और कभी कभी अपमान भी मिलता है। जैसे दुख सुख अच्छे बुरे लोग, वैसे ही अपमान और सम्मान भी है। तो अपमान जब मिलता है, लोग अपमानित करने का प्रयास करते, तब उस समय मुझे लगता है कि नहीं, मुझे प्रूफ करना और अच्छा करना, दुनिया को दिखाने के लिए नहीं बल्कि अपने आप के लिए, अपने आप को सेटिस्फाइड करने के लिए मुझे मेहनत करना है। तो हर महीने, हर हफ्ते, कभी कभी तो हर दिन कुछ ना कुछ घटनाएं घटती है जो मुझे प्रेरित करती है कि अच्छा काम करे। लेकिन जब कोई काम अच्छा हुआ, जैसे आप देखे फिल्म में कि भाई एक बच्चा है, वो नहीं पढ़ रहा था, अभाव में था पैसे का, तो हमने मदद की और फिर सुपर 30 का मन में कॉन्सेप्ट आया। लेकिन उसके बाद जब मुझे प्रतिष्ठा मिली, लोग मुझे सम्मान दिया, वो स्टूडेंट जो लोग थे उनके माता पिता मिलने आए, एक छोटे से कटोरे में मिठाई लेके, एक ठोंगे में मिठाई लेके कि सर मेरा बच्चा का आज आईआईटी में एडमिशन हो गया। या कभी कभी आते, मैं ईंट भट्टे पर काम करता था लेकिन मेरा बेटा अभी बॉम्बे में यहाँ पर पवई लेक के पास एक फ्लैट ले लिया, मैं वहीं हम लोग रह रहे। तो ये सब चीजें और मोटिवेट करती है। तो आए दिनों जो छोटी छोटी सफलताएं हैं वो लोगों को मोटिवेट करती है। तो आप कैसे इंसान है, बहुत अब निष्कर्ष बता रहे, उस पर डिपेंड करता है आप पॉजिटिव आदमी है या निगेटिव। अगर निगेटिव आदमी है तो आपको हर जगह निगेटिव दिखेगा। अगर पॉजिटिव है, ध्यान से सुनिए, पॉजिटिव है तो आपका कहीं सम्मान होगा तब भी, अपमान होगा तब भी, लाभ होगा तब भी, हानि होगी तब भी, हर में आप पॉजिटिव चीज खोज के अपने आप को मोटिवेट करके आगे बढ़ के एक टर्निंग पॉइंट बना सकते हैं।
गुड आफ्टरनून सर। सर आपकी इतनी एक्सपर्टीज थी कि आप कोई भी इंस्टीट्यूट में जाके बहुत सारा पैसा कमा सकते थे, पर आपने ऐसे लोगों को चुना जिसे हम अनदेखा करते। यदि उनके पास टैलेंट है, पर आपने क्या ऐसा सोचा कि नहीं वो आगे बढ़ने चाहिए, आगे बढ़ने नहीं, वो आईआईटी में ही जाने चाहिए। तो वो एक क्या स्ट्राइक था जो आपने उन लोगों को आज आईआईटी पहुंचा दिया?
देखिए, दरअसल में क्या है जी, पैसा कमाने की बात है, ध्यान से सुनिएगा, इसको भी समझने लायक है। आप लोग देश के भविष्य हैं, हम पूर्व वक्तागण सब लोग आपसे बहुत उम्मीद करते हैं। आपको लगता होगा कि अरे हम तो मामूली है, मैनेजमेंट कर रहे हैं, आईआईएम से भी नहीं कर रहे, मेरा क्या भविष्य है, हमारे से बहुत आगे। नहीं, आप सबसे आगे ही सोच के बातों को ध्यान से सुनिए और आप सबसे बड़ा परिवर्तन ला सकते हैं, क्योंकि आप में एक संस्कार है, आप में एक जज्बा है, एक जुनून है, आप कुछ भी कर सकते हैं। कोई इंस्टीट्यूट, कोई संस्था नामी नहीं होती है। किसी संस्था और इंस्टीट्यूट या किसी विद्यालय का नाम, कॉलेज का नाम, यूनिवर्सिटी का नाम कब होता है? जब उसके विद्यार्थी अच्छा करते हैं। अपने आप में कोई कॉलेज इंस्टीट्यूट बड़ा नहीं होता है, उसके विद्यार्थी बड़ा करते हैं। तो अभी बहुत अच्छा सवाल पूछा कि पैसे के पीछे नहीं भागा। अभी बड़ी बड़ी ऑनलाइन कंपनियां, 50 से 100 करोड़ रुपया एडवांस दे रही है। ये नहीं कि काम करो तो देंगे, एडवांस दे रही है, टी शर्ट मेरा पहन लो और चलो काम करते हैं। तो वो हम सोचते हैं लाइफ में, क्या ठीक है, अगर हमको 50 करोड़ मिलेगा तो क्या होगा, एक अच्छा बड़ा घर हो जाएगा। अभी घर में रहने की दिक्कत होती है, कमरे कम पड़ गए, परिवार बढ़ गया तो घर हो जाएगा अच्छा। उसके बाद क्या होगा? अभी हमारे पास गाड़ी है, टाटा की नैनो गाड़ी है, स्कॉर्पियो है, दो गाड़ी रखे हैं दोनों भाई मिलके, उससे चलते हैं। हो सके उस समय और महंगी गाड़ी आ जाए, उससे जीवन में तो मेरा कोई परिवर्तन नहीं आएगा। अपने गाड़ी पर बैठेंगे, अपने देख के खुश होंगे। महंगा कपड़ा पहनेंगे, दूसरा आदमी देख के जलेगा, हम तो अपने देखेंगे, अपने खुश होंगे। अरे आप अपने गांव में जाके एक बड़ा मकान बना लीजिए, या हम दावा करते हैं कि आप अपने गांव में जाइए और 1 करोड़ की गाड़ी खरीद लीजिए, वहां लेके जाइए, सब मने मन कितना आपसे को गाली देगा इसका अंदाजा नहीं लगा सकते हैं। ये देखो तो दिखाने आया है, 2 पैसा क्या होगा कि अहंकार हो गया है। तो उस तरह के धन का और घाटा है जीवन में, सही बता रहे हैं। हाँ, इतना पैसा होना चाहिए कि सुविधाएं होनी चाहिए। अभी हमको बुलाए आप लोग, तो हम कभी नहीं बोला कि किस होटल में ठहरा दीजिए। हम तो सोचे थे कि यहाँ आप लोग होटल में ठहरा दिए, हम तो सोचे थे यहाँ कि गेस्ट हाउस में भी रुक जाएंगे, किस क्लास का टिकट दीजिए। तो वो सब अपने आप को भ्रम में डालने जैसी चीजें हैं। तो आप लेकिन आज हम बहुत पैसा कमा लेते, ध्यान से सुनना बच्चों, आज हम बहुत पैसा कमा लेते, बहुत चीजें हमारे पास होती, तो फिर आप हमको नहीं बुलाते। अमीर आदमी का कोई इतिहास नहीं होता है। कभी इतिहास में पढ़े हैं फलना युग का अमीर आदमी ये थे, उस शहर के अमीर आदमी ये थे? हमेशा यह इतिहास बनाता है क्रांतिकारी पुरुष, कवि, लेखक, पत्रकार, जो समाज में बदलाव का हिस्सा बनता है, वो इतिहास में दर्ज होता है। अमीर आदमी कभी इतिहास में दर्ज नहीं होता है, उसको इतिहास समाज उतना सम्मान नहीं देता। अमीरी करना, मेहनत से पैसा कमाना, अपना स्टार्टअप करना, सैकड़ों करोड़, हजारों करोड़ कमाना, टैक्स भरना, लोगों को रोजगार देना, ये कोई गलत काम नहीं है। ऐसा हम नहीं बोले कि गलत काम है, करना चाहिए, लोगों को ज्यादा से ज्यादा काम देना चाहिए। बट हमारे कहने का मतलब है कि सिर्फ पैसे ही के चक्कर में सब चीजों को खो देना भी गलत बात है। आप जितना दूसरे के लिए करेंगे, अच्छा सोचेंगे, फिर इनडायरेक्ट आपको खुशी कहीं ना कहीं मिलेगी। और जीवन में आदमी क्या सोचता है तक कि खुश रहना, तो खुश रहिए।
नमस्कार सर, गुड मॉर्निंग सर। मेरा क्वेश्चन अब मेरी पर्सनल प्रॉब्लम से है। तो जैसे कि आपने कहा कि लाइफ में बेसिक सब चीज़ का सेम होता है, तो मेरे साथ प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि बेसिक तो मुझे आता है, तो उसमें जो ट्रांजिशन होता है तो हर समय लाइफ में अप्लाइड चीज़ लगती है। तो जैसे कि आईआईटी की भी तैयारी होती है तो आप बेसिक पढ़ते हैं, अप्लाई उसको करते हैं, तो वो तो मेरा फेस चला गया। अब जैसे मैं एमबीए कर रहा हूँ, तो इसमें क्या है कि मैं बेसिक किसी चीज़ का पढ़ता हूँ और उसका जब अप्लाइड फॉर्म में हम आते हैं अंडरस्टैंडिंग में, तो उसमें समय भी लगता है और दिक्कत भी होती है और वो कनेक्ट नहीं बन पाता है चीज़ों के साथ। जैसे परसों मैंने एक लाइब्रेरी से बुक इशू करी, एमबीए थ्रू स्टोरीज, तो उसमें 22 चैप्टर्स हैं। तो उसमें पहले क्या है, मॉरल स्टोरीज से आपको कंटेंट की तरफ लेके जाया जाता है। तो अब मॉरल स्टोरीज तो मुझे अच्छी लगती हैं, तो मैंने एक ही रात में सब पढ़ दी। लेकिन जब वो एक्चुअल में एप्लीकेशन पार्ट है, तो उसका जब मैं पढ़ने के लिए गया तो वो 2 चैप्टर ही ऐसा लगा कि मतलब नहीं हो पा रहे हैं, आप सो जाओ, तो वो स्लीपिंग पिल बन गया। तो सर इसमें मैं जानना चाहूँगा कि वो मतलब वो खुद ब खुद आता है या आपको उसके पीछे भागना पड़ता है कि अब आप कॉन्सेप्ट समझते हैं, अब आप अप्लाई करेंगे इसको?
देखिए, बहुत रहस्यमय और बहुत अच्छा सवाल पूछा है, आप लोगों को फायदे का सवाल पूछा। बैठ जाइए। पहले इन्होंने कहा कि कुछ पर्सनल सवाल है, तो हमको लगा कि अपने प्यार मोहब्बत की क्या कोई बात पूछेंगे। हम डर गए भाई कि अच्छा क्या बोलना चाहिए। खैर, तो अच्छा पूछा, बहुत अच्छा सवाल पूछा। देखिए, एक बहुत अच्छी बात बोलते हैं, बहुत समझने लायक बात है, इसको ध्यान से सुनिए। पढ़ने लिखने से कोई फायदा नहीं, आप याद रखिए। अगर पढ़ने लिखने से जो आदमी सोचता है कि हम किताब पढ़ लेंगे, स्टोरीज पढ़ लेंगे, वो नहीं होगा। बताइए, धीरू भाई अंबानी कितने पढ़े लिखे थे? बताइए कि मनहर भाई ककाड़िया भी सूरत में है, 5,000 करोड़ की उनकी कंपनी है, ऐसे उनका वर्थ न जाने कितना है, 4वीं कक्षा पास है, हिंदी ठीक से नहीं पढ़ पाते, गुजराती में बात करते हैं। ढोलकिया साहब, क्या क्या नाम बहुत सुने होंगे गुजराती लोगों का। तो वो लोग कम पढ़े हुए रहते हैं, फिर भी इतना सक्सेसफुल रहते हैं, और आप परेशान है, रात रात भर पढ़ रहे हैं, नींद आ रही है, सीख रहे हैं। दरअसल में आपको एक और राज की बात बताते हैं। वैसे लोगों के साथ हम बहुत वक्त बिताए, इधर 1 साल में सीखने का प्रयास किया कि अरे भाई, बिना पढ़े कैसे इतना सक्सेसफुल हो जाता है आदमी। वो लोग भी पढ़ता है। इसको बहुत अच्छा सवाल पूछा है, बहुत फायदेमंद बता रहे। होता क्या है कि अब सीरियसली बोला जाए तो पढ़ने लिखने का बहुत फायदा है, लेकिन आपका कितना व्यवहारिक ज्ञान है, प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ से कितना आपका जुड़ाव है, ये सबसे ज्यादा फायदा देता है। आज हमने कोई तैयारी नहीं की, हम अभी रास्ते में पूछा कि कार्यक्रम का विषय क्या है, तो जो हमारे साथ विक्रांत जी थे वो बोले कि सर बातचीत है। हम कहे बातचीत का भी तो विषय होगा, तो साहित्यिक विषय है, हमारा फेस्टिवल चल रहा है, यहाँ तो कोई साहित्य पर बात नहीं हो रही है। हम पूरी तैयारी करके आते साहित्य पर, प्रेमचंद के बारे में और डिटेल जान लेते, बता रहे रेणु जी के बारे में जान लेते, अभी जो नए नए जो लोग हैं, इंग्लिश राइटर, फ्रेंच राइटर, सब के बारे में तैयारी कर लेते, और यहाँ क्वेश्चन बदल जाता है ना। तो इसलिए हमेशा आपको अपना कॉमन सेंस लगाना है। एक कहानी आप लोग सुने होंगे, बंदर और टोपी वाली कहानी कौन कौन सुने हैं? बहुत बचपन से सुनते आए हम लोग कि था, कहानी यही ना है, बहुत अच्छी कहानी, इसको ध्यान से सुनिएगा कि क्या हुआ कि एक बेचारा, पुराने समय की कहानी है, टोपी बेचता था, एक व्यापारी था बेचारा, कंधे पर गट्ठर रख के टोपी ले लो टोपी ले लो, पूरे घूम घूम कर गांव में टोपी बेचता था। एक बार बेचते बेचते थक गया, उसकी वाइफ थी जो बनाई हुई थी, खाना वाना खाया, एक पेड़ के नीचे छाया देखकर अपना सो गया और अपनी टोपी उपी पहने हुए था, गट्ठर रख के। गट्ठर थोड़ा सा खुला हुआ जैसा था, एक ऊपर से बंदर आया, दो बंदर आया, टोपी लेके भागने लगा। जब उसकी नींद खुली तो देखा जा सारा टोपियां क्या है भाई, गायब है। तब उसको दिमाग आया कि अच्छा, हम सुने बचपन से कि बंदर क्या होता है, नकलची। तो पहले बंदर को क्या खिकी 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 किया, तो बंदर भी खिकी खिकी किया, एक्टिंग जो किया बंदर किया, तो फिर एक बार निकाल के अपनी टोपी को फेंक दिया। बंदर भी सारे टोपी को फेंक दिया, फिर वो डंडा से सबको भगाया और सब टोपी लेके वापस चलाया। ये कहानी कौन कौन सुने? सब सुने। इसके आगे क्या हुआ? इसके आगे हुआ कि उसके आगे हुआ जो नॉर्मली होता है, हर बच्चे अपने माता पिता से कम आगे बढ़ते हैं ज्यादातर, और जो एक बहुत कॉन्सेप्ट दे रहे हैं, जो अपने माता पिता का जो लेवल है उससे आगे बढ़ जाता है बच्चा, और एक बच्चा है जिसका माता पिता का लेवल बहुत है और आपके लेवल का है, तो आप में संघर्ष करने की, जीतने की क्षमता ज्यादा हो जाएगी। मान लिया जाए कोई एक मिनिस्टर है, उसका कोई बेटा है वो भी मिनिस्टर बन गया, और एक गरीब आदमी मेहनत करते करते मिनिस्टर बना, दोनों एक लेवल पर है, तो जो गरीबी से संघर्ष करते हुआ वो उसको कभी भी मुकाबला में हरा देगा, ये हम लिख के दे सकते हैं, क्योंकि उसके पास अपना एक्सपीरियंस है। तो जनरली होता है उतना नहीं बनता है, वैसे ही हो गया। पिताजी उसके मर गए बेचारे, तो बच्चा था जो टोपी वाले का, बोला आप पिताजी गुजर गए, बहुत रोया धोया, पिताजी तो जिंदगी भर टोपी बेले, वो भी गट्ठर लिया चल दिया, वो भी बेचने लगा, टोपी ले लो टोपी ले लो टोपी ले लो, करते करते एक बार कई साल बाद उसके साथ भी यही घटना गई, थक गया, थोड़ा खाना खा लिया, उसी पेड़ के नीचे सो गया, और जब नींद खुली तो सारी टोपियां गायब थी, सब बंदर पहने हुए थे। कहानी का एक्सटेंशन हमने किया, तो बड़ा खुश हुआ वो कि अरे ये तो पिताजी का फार्मूला, तो बंदर को कहा हा हा हा, तो बंदर भी कहा हा हा हा, बंदर को मुंह चिढ़ाया, वो भी चिढ़ाया, फिर वो सोचा कि अब मेरी सफलता की बारी, वो टोपी निकाल के फेंका, एक बंदर दौड़ के आया, वो भी टोपी लेके भाग गया। क्योंकि दोस्तों वो कभी सोचा नहीं था, उसको प्रैक्टिकल ज्ञान नहीं था कि जैसे पिताजी आके अपनी बड़ाई किए, और हम जब बच्चे थे छोटे तो उन्होंने कहानी सुनाई हमारी माता जी को, हम लोगों को, बच्चों को, कि देखो हमने आज ऐसा दिमाग लगाया। वो भूल गया कि बंदर भी अपने परिवारों को कहानी सुनाया होगा कि एक टोपी वाला ठग के भाग गया। इससे क्या हम लोग सीखते हैं कि उधार लिया हुआ ज्ञान अपना कभी नहीं होता है। स्वामी जी आज इतने बड़े स्वामी बने, हम लोग उनके चरण स्पर्श करते हैं हमेशा, फोटो पर, किसी मूर्ति पर, आत्मा से, हृदय से। क्यों? क्योंकि भटके, कहाँ शिकागो, कहाँ जंगल, कहाँ कलकत्ता, कहाँ दिल्ली, भटकी और अनुभव लिखा। इसलिए अगर आप चाहते कि जो ज्ञान है उसका एप्लीकेशन हो, तो कभी जाके भिखारियों के साथ जीवन बिताइए, कभी जाके स्लम में चले जाइए, कभी कोई फिल्म वाले के से मिलिए, भले वो भगा दे गेट से। अब अभी बताए थे कि जिसे खटखटाओगे वो खुल जाएगा। तो हम बचपन में सोचते थे कि भाई अमिताभ बच्चन जी का दरवाजा तो कोई खटखटा नहीं सकता है। आज के तारीख में न जाने कितनी बार अमिताभ बच्चन जी हमको बुला चुके हैं, तो खुल जाता है दरवाजा। तो कहने का मेरा मतलब यही है कि कॉन्फिडेंस में रहिए। कभी अस्पताल में चले गए, कभी सब्जी मार्केट में चल गए, कभी जा पॉकेटे से पैसा कोई निकाल लिया, कभी आपको कोई बेइज्जती कर दिया, अपमानित कर दिया, ये सारी चीजें आपको ज्ञान देती है। तो जितना आप किसानों के बीच में बिताइए, तो किताब भी पढ़िए। और एक राज की बात, जो लोग चौथी छठी पास करके सक्सेसफुल होते, उनके जिंदगी में जब हमने घुसा तो पता चला वो 2-3 आदमी रखते हैं आज के मॉडर्न टाइम में, और वो क्या करते हैं, वो किताबों को पढ़ पढ़ के बताता है कि देखिए ऐसा है, ओफरा विनफ्रे के साथ ऐसा हो गया, तो मोदी जी का लाइफ ऐसा था, ऐसा बताता है, उससे वो सीखने का प्रयास करते हैं। तो पढ़ाई भी जरूरी है, और पढ़ाई के लिए व्यवहारिक ज्ञान में जब हम बदलाव लाना चाहेंगे तो व्यवहारिक ज्ञान के लिए घूमना फिरना, लोगों के साथ समझना भी जरूरी है। ठीक है
सर, आपके आपके फेस्ट में आने से और आपसे बात करने से आनंद आया बहुत।
नाम ही आनंद है मेरा। पिताजी कहते बेटा आनंदित करते रहना सबको।
गुड आफ्टरनून सर, मैं इशिता हूँ, मैं क्लास 10th की स्टूडेंट हूँ और मैं आपसे स्पेशली यहाँ पे मिलने आई हूँ। मैं पूछना चाहती थी कि जैसे कुछ दिनों में मेरे बोर्ड्स हैं, उसके बाद मेरा भी प्लान है कि मैं जेई का प्रिपरेशन करूँ, उसके बाद मेरा प्लान है कि मैं यूपीएससी का प्रिपरेशन करूँ। तो सॉर्ट ऑफ अभी लगता है कि बहुत आगे जाके मेहनत करनी है, तो मेहनत से थोड़ा डर लगने लगता है कि लाइफ में बहुत कुछ देखना है, और उसके चक्कर में थोड़ा डीमोटिवेशन आ जाता है, डिसिप्लिन चला जाता है। एंड तो मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती थी कि लाइफ में एक डिसिप्लिन मेंटेन करके गोल पे फोकस रख के कैसे आगे बढ़ूं?
जिस दिन आप, बहुत अच्छा सवाल छोटी बच्ची है पूछी, जिस दिन आप इस बात को मान लेते, पहला ही भी जवाब दिया, फिर भी एक बार और समझा रहे दूसरे तरीके से, कि मुझ में असीम क्षमताएं हैं, मैं बहुत बड़ा कर सकती हूं, जिस दिन इस बच्ची को एहसास हो जाएगा, ये बच्ची का फोकस अपने आप क्लियर हो जाएगा, रास्ते अपने आप दिखने लगेंगे, सब कुछ अपने आप हो जाएगा। केवल इस मन में इस विश्वास को ठान लीजिए कि मुझे इस गोल को अचीव करना, बस सब अपने आप होता है, रास्ता अपने आप निकलता है। जब हम मैथमेटिक्स पढ़ना स्टार्ट किए थे तो बीच में क्या हो गया कि हम थोड़ा सा इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में घुस गए, बहुत सा साइंस का मॉडल, स्कूल के बात बता रहे, 7वीं 6ठी क्लास का पढ़ने लगे, तो मैथमेटिक्स में मेरा इंटरेस्ट लूज हो गया, और 1-2 साल मैथमेटिक्स अच्छे से नहीं पढ़े तो मैथमेटिक्स में बहुत तकलीफें होने लगी, तो टीचर से ट्यूशन लिया, बहुत संक्षेप में बता रहे, समय का अभाव है, तो टीचर बोल दिया कि तुमसे नहीं हो पाएगा मैथमेटिक्स। उन्होंने कहा कि जाओ बेटा तुम कुछ आईटीआई का तैयारी करो, प्लम्बर सीख लो, तुमसे कुछ नहीं होगा। लेकिन उस समय दृढ़ इच्छा शक्ति थी कि मुझे करनी है, चीजों को करना है, धरातल पर उतारना है, तो अपने से पढ़ने लगे, सेल्फ स्टडी। जो हमारे सामने, घर के सामने एक पाठक जी रहते थे, हमसे 4 साल सीनियर, उनसे पूछते थे, उनका पैर हाथ दबाते थे, उनको जाके कुछ खिलाते पिलाते थे कि भैया बताइए बताइए, उनकी सेवा करते थे। तो जब आप मन में ठान लीजिएगा कि करना है तो रास्ते अपने आप निकलने लगेंगे, और मेहनत करने वक्त तो आपको पता भी नहीं चलेगा कि कब समय बीत गया। अगर आपको इंटरेस्ट हो जाए कोई चीज से तब आप मेहनत बहुत ज्यादा करने लगते हैं, अगर इंटरेस्ट नहीं होता है तो चीजें बदल जाती है। हमारे घर के बगल, बहुत अच्छी कहानी बता रहे हैं बच्चों, ध्यान से सुनिएगा। हमारे घर के, हम लोग एक बहुत छोटे से मोहल्ले में रहते हैं, बहुत छोटे से मोहल्ले में, तो हमारे घर के बगल में एक बुजुर्ग महिला रहती थी, बुजुर्ग भी बहुत ज्यादा नहीं कहिए, 50-60 की होंगी, हम भी उस समय बहुत कम उम्र के थे। तो उनका जो बेटा था मनोज, वो कोई 18-20 साल का रहा होगा। उसके ममेरे भाई की साली कलकत्ता से आ रही थी पटना परीक्षा देने, तो उसकी मदर बोली ना कि भाई जाओ देखो उसको रिसीव करके ट्रेन से ले आओ। पंजाब मेल एक ट्रेन है कलकत्ता से पटना आती, एकदम सुबह भोर में अंधकार में। अब वो बच्चा में इंटरेस्ट था कि अरे भाई साली आ रही है, भैया की साली है, चलो भाई चलते हैं लेने। उसके मन में बिना झरंकृत हो रहा था। वो क्या किया कि राखी से लगा हुआ था, आयरन किया कपड़ा अपना, सब तैयार हुआ। उसके पास घड़ी नहीं थी उस समय मोबाइल वोबाइल का जमाना नहीं था। हमसे घड़ी मांगा कि भैया घड़ी है आपके पास? हम कहा हेलो, अरे क्या है? अरे भाई आ रही है कलकत्ता से, भैया की साली आ रहे, लाने जा रहे हैं। 4:30 बजे ट्रेन आती है, इसे एकदम रियल एग्जाम्पल दे रहे हैं। 4:30 बजे आती है, वो निकला 3 बजे निकल गया, जबकि रेलवे स्टेशन आधे घंटे का है। देखा ऑटो कोई रिक्शा कुछ नहीं था, पैदले चला गया, पहुंच गया, फिर लेके आ गया। फिर 6-7 महीना बाद एक उसकी मौसी आने वाली थी ऐसी सुबह, तो मम्मी बोली ना कि बेटा इस बार 5-5:30 बजे ट्रेन है, 4:30 बजे नहीं, जाओ ले आओ मौसी को। तो बड़ा नींद आती है, कहाँ जाए बेकार है मैया, इसे तुम बात बोल रही हो, छोड़ो हटाओ। तो बोली कि अरे नहीं बेटा, 5:30 बज गया, अलार्म लगाई हुई थी, उसकी मदर उठाई, उठ बेटा उठ बेटा। उठ के गया, 20-25 मिनट में रोड से घूम के आ गया सड़क से। क्या हुआ क्या हुआ भाई क्या हुआ? अरे क्या करे मम्मी, कोई ऑटो टोटो भोर में नहीं मिला, छोड़ो अपने आ जाएगी, वो देखी है पहले आई है। तो आप में इंटरेस्ट कितना है, कहने का मतलब मैंने एक छोटा सा उदाहरण दिया। इससे ये होता है ना कि अगर आपको में इंटरेस्ट आ गया, आपके मन में आप दृढ़ संकल्पित हो गए कि मुझे चाहे जो भी कीमत चुकानी पड़े, जो भी हो मुझे करना है, हर कीमत पर सफलता प्राप्त कर दिए, तो चीजें अपने आप होने लगती है। और अगर नहीं चीजें अपने आप हो रही, मेहनत से डर लग रहा है, तो आप समझ लीजिए कि आप उसके हकदार नहीं है, क्योंकि आपकी पूरी दिली इच्छा नहीं है कि वो गोल आपके पास आए। अगर आप गोल को अचीव करना चाहते तो अपने आप ऐसा मन में लगने लगेगा कि मेहनत करने में मजा आएगा।
गुड आफ्टरनून सर, मेरा नाम अजय गुप्ता है, मैं यहाँ पे फैकल्टी हूँ। आप बिहार से आते हैं और बिहार का जो पॉलिटिकल और सोशियोलॉजिकल जो स्ट्रक्चर है बहुत डिफरेंट है। वहाँ पे लोग ये देखते हैं कि कौन सरकारी नौकरी में है, जहाँ की एक अलग परसेप्शन बन जाता है। और जब पढ़ा लिखा आदमी जब इस तरह के कोई वेंचर स्टार्ट करता है, जैसे कोचिंग हो गया, ट्यूशन हो गया, तो सोसाइटी बड़े नीची निगाह से देखती है, उसको बहुत रिस्पेक्ट नहीं किया जाता है। तो जो सोशल चैलेंजेज आते हैं वो कैसे आपके साथ आए और कैसे आपने हैंडल किया उसको?
देखिए हमारे साथ जो आया और थोड़ा कैसे हैंडल किया हल्का बताएंगे। फिल्म में भी आप देखे हैं तो बहुत सारे माफिया लोग लग गए, कोई पॉलिटिकल पार्टियां भी पीछे लग जाती है कि कहीं इसको कोई अच्छा जगह पर टिकट ना दे दे, कोई पार्टी प्रमोट करके ना आगे बढ़ा दे, तो हमारी दाल रोटी का क्या होगा। ये सब चीजें आती है। बिहार में क्या है कि प्रतिभाओं की कमी नहीं है, वहाँ असाधारण प्रतिभा है। न वहाँ आपका कोई फैक्ट्री है, ना कोई वहाँ पर बहुत बड़ा इंस्टीट्यूशन है। वहाँ पर क्या है भाई, सिर्फ कोई एक ही रोजगार है, वो अब बाढ़ कभी कभी सुखाड़ कभी। अब देखते हैं खेती भी नहीं हो पाती है ठीक से। वहाँ की खेती है मेहनत, लोग पढ़ते हैं लिखते हैं आगे बढ़ते हैं। लेकिन बिहार की सबसे बड़ी समस्या है कि जातिवाद की समस्या है। वाह, आपका शुभ नाम क्या बताए थे भैया? अजय गुप्ता। गुप्ता जी बता दिए तो साफ हो गया। मान लीजिए बोलते हैं अजय कुमार, अजय सिन्हा, हाँ हाँ बोलते, शायद हम बता रहे हैं ना। तो वहां क्या होता है कि लोगों को परेशानी होती है कि आखिर ठीक है, आखिर ये जात कौन है। और अगर अजय जी बहुत अच्छे आदमी है, बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, वाह क्या बात है, बाय द वे आपका कास्ट क्या है, ओ हमसे मैच नहीं किया, तो गलत हो गया। ये परसेप्शन बिहार में हटना सबसे जरूरी है। किसी व्यक्ति की पहचान जाति के आधार पर हो, ये बहुत दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण बात है। उसके टैलेंट के आधार पर होना चाहिए, उसके मेहनत के आधार पर होना चाहिए, उसके प्रतिभा के आधार पर होना चाहिए। तो एक ये बड़ी समस्या वहां पर है। दूसरी समस्या क्या है कि वहां पर एक टाइम से, ऐसा नहीं बोल रहे अभी की सरकार को हम कोई बदनाम कर रहे हैं, एक टाइम से बहुत पुराने काल में टाइम टू टाइम भ्रष्टाचार हर जगह होता है, वहां भी होता है। तो भ्रष्टाचार के जरिए पैसा आया। अब कोई पैसा अगर ईमानदारी से भी कमाता है, चाहे कोई कोचिंग से कमाए या व्यापार करके कमाए या स्टेशनरी बेच के, तो पैसा कमाने वाला को वहां गलत समझ लेता है। जबकि ये गुजरात में पैसा कमाने वाला, महाराष्ट्र में पैसा कमाने वाले को सम्मान देता है। तो धीरे धीरे चीजें बदलेगी। आप लोग जैसा प्रोफेसर कभी कभी वहां जाके भाषण देगा, बच्चों से इंटरेक्ट करेगा, 1 महीना बिताएगा, तो चीजें बदल जाएगी। धन्यवाद।
सर, बिहार से ही जुड़ी हुई मेरे भी मन में वही प्रश्न था कि समस्याएं क्या है और उसका समाधान क्या हो सकता है। तो आधा उत्तर तो आपने दे दिया है कि क्या चीज़ें करनी चाहिए। लेकिन और अगर लार्जर पर्सपेक्टिव में बात किया जाए कि बिहार से अगर देखें कि IAS हो, IPS हो, बहुत बड़े बड़े लोग निकले हैं, लेकिन फिर भी बिहार इतना पिछड़ा क्यों रह गया है? जो हम में से कई लोग बिहार कभी गए नहीं होंगे, लेकिन जो खबरें हम सुनते हैं या फिर देखते हैं, इतना पिछड़ा क्यों रह गया और आने वाले समय में हम कैसे उसको ठीक कर सकते हैं?
देखिए, ये दोनों के लेवल पर स्तर पर बात हो सकती है, एक सरकार के भी स्तर पर, एक समाज के भी स्तर पर। बिहार को अच्छा करने के लिए ज्यादा से ज्यादा शिक्षा का प्रचार प्रसार होना चाहिए। जितना ज्यादा से ज्यादा शिक्षा का प्रचार होगा, लोगों को अधिकार के बारे में पता चलेगा, लोगों को समझ बढ़ेगी कि देखिए जाति के आधार पर किसी की पहचान नहीं होनी चाहिए। कोई व्यक्ति कोई काम कर रहा है, पूरा टैक्स दे रहा है, पैसा कमा रहा है, तो उसका रिस्पेक्ट होना चाहिए। तो जितना हम पढ़े लिखेंगे, जितना शिक्षा का प्रसार होगा, उतनी समस्याएं घटेगी। दूसरी बात कि सबसे अच्छी बात है, हम इसका समर्थन भी करते हैं कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा अंतरजातीय विवाह होगा, उतनी समस्याएं घटेगी। तो हम लोग किसी ग्रुप में बट जाते, जब तक पूरा मेरा देश एक नहीं होगा, हम लोग एक मंतव्य से आगे नहीं बढ़ेंगे। बिहार की बात तो छोड़ दी, पूरे देश की बात बता रहे, तब तक हमारा देश आगे नहीं बढ़ सकता है। जो भी देश आगे बढ़ा, हम लोग उसमें एक देखते हैं कि राष्ट्र का अपना भावना होनी चाहिए। तो जब तक हमारे राज्य की भावना, राष्ट्र की भावना नहीं आएगी दिल में, जब तक हमको नहीं लगेगा कि हमको आगे बढ़ना है, हम लोग सीमित हो जाएंगे व्यक्तिगत, जातिगत, तब तक हम लोग आगे नहीं बढ़ सकते। विश्व गुरु बनने के लिए जरूरी है कि हम लोग सब एक हैं, सब भाई बंधु हैं, सबको मिलकर आगे बढ़ना, ये भावना लाने की जरूरत है। अंतिम 2 सवाल का जवाब और दे देंगे, क्योंकि यहां से सीधा एयरपोर्ट जाना, इसलिए अंतिम 2 सवाल। जी,
Hello, thank you for coming here and enlighten us for your knowledge, from your knowledge. ज़्यादातर बच्चे चाहते हैं वो जेई में जाएं और सारे आईआईटी में जाएं, और आपका जो मॉडल है सब बहुत सक्सेसफुल है। तो ऐसा आपने कुछ प्लान किया है कि आपका मॉडल बाकी शहर में आए और ज़्यादा लोग आपके मॉडल से प्रॉफिट, उनको ज़्यादा फ़ायदा हो, ज़्यादा बच्चे जेई में हो? ऐसा कुछ है आपका जो दूसरे लोग कर सके दूसरे शहरों में और आईआईटी में आ सकें?
और पूछ लीजिए, एक ही साथ जवाब दे देंगे, अच्छा रहेगा। वो सब स्ट्रेस आप ही जैसे लोग पेरेंट्स ला देते हैं बच्चों में, सही बता रहे हैं। हाँ, बेचारा बच्चा वो चाहता है कि हम फुटबॉल खेलें, बेचारा बच्चा चाहता है कि थोड़ा सब्जी मंडी में जाके आज सब्जी खरीद ले, थोड़ा दोस्तों के साथ जी ले। आपके कहने का मतलब आप एक प्रतिनिधित्व कर रहे हैं, एग्जैक्टली आप नहीं है। पेरेंट्स जो है ना, दबाव बना देता है बच्चों पर। कट, हम उस जमाने के आदमी, जब मेरे पास पंखा नहीं था, टूटी चप्पल पहनते थे, तुमको इतना फैसिलिटी दे रहे, देखो हमने खेत गिरवी पर रख दिया, हम लोन लेके तुमको कोटा भेज रहे, तुम पढ़ नहीं रहे हो, क्या समझ रहे हो, हमारी इज्जत क्या रहेगी? बेचारा बच्चा डर जाता है, प्रेशर में आ जाता है। हम लोग अपने सुपर 30 के बच्चों को हमेशा करते हैं और अपने व्यक्तिगत बच्चों को भी बोलते हैं कि अरे यार आईआईटी करो, अच्छा रैंक लाओ, अगर आईआईटी भी नहीं हुआ तो एनआईटी में जाओ, वो भी नहीं हुआ तो अच्छा इंसान जरूर बनो, अपनी जिंदगी जियो, क्योंकि चौथा पास आदमी भी हजारों करोड़ कमा रहा है। तो आईआईटी करके तुम क्या कर लोगे? कंप्यूटर ठोके हुए कहीं जाके विदेश में गुलामी करोगे। इसलिए अच्छी बात है, उसको जीने दीजिए, उसको सोचने दीजिए, उसके मन में विश्वास जगाइए कि कोई भी काम करो। हमारे फादर बोलते थे कोई भी काम करो, कोई जरूरी नहीं है कि आईआईटी करो, यूपीएससी करो, कुछ करो, कोई भी काम करो तो उससे सबसे बेहतर तरीके से करो और दुनिया में कुछ अलग करके दिखाओ। ये बच्चे को बोलते रहिए तो क्रांति ला दो। और आपका जवाब बोले कि जो बच्चे हैं, हमेशा आप सभी बच्चों को बोलते हैं, कोई जेई की बात नहीं है, कोई नीट की बात नहीं, हमेशा चलते चलते आप भी एक पूछ ही लीजिए, 1 मिनट में सवाल तो एक ही साथ जवाब दे देंगे। हाँ
सर, कभी कभी ऐसी सिचुएशन होती है कि टू अचीव अ पर्टिकुलर गोल वी आर रेडी टू गिव आवर 100% बाय आवर हार्ट, बट ऐसा रहता है कि मन नहीं करता, उस कंफर्ट जोन से हम बाहर नहीं आना चाहते। तो सर हाउ टू टैकल दिस सिचुएशन?
ये तो एकदम कंट्राडिक्टरी बोल रहे हैं कि 100% दे भी रहे हैं और मन भी नहीं कर रहा है।
बाय आवर हार्ट।
हाँ, नहीं तो वो आपका माने वो ख्याली पुलाव हो गया ना। कौन नहीं यहाँ सोचता होगा कि चलते हैं आज अंबानी जी के साथ खाना खाते हैं, कौन नहीं सोचता होगा कि चलते हैं आज थोड़ा अमेरिका से चाय पी के आते हैं, टाइम स्क्वायर से घूम के चलते हैं, 4 दोस्तों। सोच बैठिए, सोचना एक अलग बात है और दृढ़ संकल्पित होना एक अलग बात है। इस पर हम आएंगे, लेकिन इनको बता दे, दो चीज बताने के बाद हम अपनी बातों को खत्म करेंगे। सबसे जरूरी है कि कोई भी सब्जेक्ट को पढ़े ना, उसको गहराई से पढ़े। जैसे आप बोले मैनेजमेंट की किताब पढ़ते, हमको अच्छा लगा कि ये बहुत दिल से पढ़ रहे हैं, ये बहुत बड़ी बात है, बहुत अच्छी बात है। पढ़िए कि अगर आप पढ़ते हैं फैमिली बिजनेस, मान लीजिए एक टॉपिक है, अगर आप पढ़ते हैं इंटरनेशनल बिजनेस, तो आप पढ़िए कि पूरे दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है, इसको जानने की इच्छा रखिए। आप अमेरिकन कैसे इस चीज को पढ़ा रहा है, उसका एप्लीकेशन यहाँ कैसे हो रहा है, चेस्कोलाविया में कैसे हो रहा है, चाइना में कैसे हो रहा है, जो भी सफल है उस कंट्री में इस जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं उसका कैसे एप्लीकेशन हो रहा है, क्या पढ़ाई हो रही है, और जहां सफलता है वो असफल क्यों है, इसको भी पढ़िए। क्योंकि आपको विश्व गुरु बनना है तो वर्ल्ड क्लास बनना है, तो आपको एकदम हर जगह का हर चीज की जानकारी होनी चाहिए, हाउ एंड वाई। लोग रट लेते हैं एरिया ऑफ ट्रायंगल, हमेशा हम बोलते हैं हाफ इंटू बेस इंटू हाइट, व्हाट इज द रीजन बिहाइंड इट, ये हम नहीं सोचते। हम एक थ्योरी पढ़ लिए बस हो गया, लेकिन उस थ्योरी को जितना ज्यादा से ज्यादा बड़े डोमेन में ले जाके उसको सोचिएगा, पढ़िएगा, तब अच्छा होगा। आप सोचिए कि आप नोबेल प्राइज विनर हैं, हमको ये चीज पढ़ रहे हैं, इसको सबसे बढ़िया पढ़ाना है। हम लोग, आप देखे होंगे फिल्म में कि हम नई जानकारी के लिए ट्रेन से 4 घंटा 5 घंटा जाते थे, या 4-5 घंटा आते थे, 6 घंटा, और बनारस जाके बीएचयू की लाइब्रेरी में पढ़ते थे। वहां पर बेइज्जती होती थी क्योंकि वहां पर अपना कोई कार्ड नहीं था, एडमिशन नहीं। लेकिन नई चीज की जानकारी, नई चीज के जानकारी के लिए जब हमारे पास कोचिंग में कुछ दिन पढ़ाए, पैसा आया, दिखाया फिल्म में कि हमने मोटरसाइकिल ले लिया, टीवी नहीं, सबसे पहला हमने लिया था इंटरनेट कनेक्शन। उस समय पटना से डायल नहीं होता था, कलकत्ता से डायल होके च्यू च्यू करके जुड़ता था, और वहां से हम लोग इंफॉर्मेशन गैदर किए तो पता चला कि एक अमेजॉन है जो किताब बेचता है। उस समय अमेजॉन का नाम भी कोई नहीं जानता, तो अमेरिका तक सीमित था। तो किताब खरीदने के लिए चाहिए क्रेडिट कार्ड, क्रेडिट कार्ड को अब तो जाइए रेलवे स्टेशन पर, एयरपोर्ट पर, अच्छे मॉल में, तो आपको पीछा करेगा, खदेड़ेगा, कार्ड ले लो, कार्ड ले लो। उस समय हम बोलते थे भैया कार्ड दे दो, कार्ड दे दो, कोई कार्ड नहीं देता था। सही बता रहे। तो बिहार में कार्ड नहीं मिलता था, बंगाल गए, वहां पर कार्ड लेने के लिए कलकत्ता में एक आदमी से गए, एक आदमी ने हमारी सिफारिश की कि दे दो, भगा दिया, कह रहे तो देखने में गुंडा लगता है, दाढ़ी उड़ी रखे हुए, जाइए पहले दाढ़ी उड़ी कटा के आइए। हम भैया हम दाढ़ी नहीं कटाएंगे, हम सीधा मास्टर बहुत समझाए तब काट दिया जाके, स्टैंडर्ड चार्टर्ड बैंक, तब खरीदे। तो क्यों? क्योंकि ये भूख थी हमारी। हमारे घर कभी आइए, सब लोग आमंत्रित, चाइनीज, कोरियन, रसियन, हर तरह की लैंग्वेज में मैथ की किताब रहती, क्योंकि हम प्रयास हमेशा करते हैं, अरे हमारी क्या पहचान, एक अच्छा टीचर, एक अच्छा टीचर को एक अच्छा नॉलेज होना चाहिए, खाली मोटिवेशन का बात बोलने से नहीं होगा। तो वही हम आपको बताना चाह रहे हैं कि अपने फील्ड में बहुत गहराई तक पढ़िए, चाहे वो जेई की तैयारी हो, नीट की तैयारी हो, मैनेजमेंट की पढ़ाई हो, पीएचडी। सोचिए कि इतना ज्ञान किसी के पास ना हो, इतना हम पढ़ेंगे, अपना अंतिम ताकत लगाइए। और लास्ट में इनका सवाल का जवाब, दृढ़ निश्चित करिए अपने आप को, दृढ़ संकल्पित, जिसको बोलते हैं कि दृढ़ निश्चय कर लिया कि अब हमको आगे बढ़ना है, हमारा 1 मिनट भी समय नहीं इधर उधर करना है। और ये नहीं कि हम कल से करेंगे, मंडे से करेंगे, ठीक है भाई, दीपावली के बाद से करेंगे, 1 जनवरी से, कभी आज तक नहीं हुआ, अभी से करेंगे और हर पल करेंगे, उस ख्यालात के साथ, उस उम्मीद के साथ जिंदगी को जिएंगे। और हमेशा उम्मीदों का जिया जलते रहना चाहिए आपके मन में। अगर वैसा होगा तो आप सो नहीं पाइएगा। बोले ना अभी मनोज वाली कहानी बता दी, उसका इंटरेस्ट था तो रेलवे स्टेशन चला गया, रात में सोवे नहीं किया, और दूसरा दिन उसका इंटरेस्ट था। तो जब आपको पूरा इंटरेस्ट आ जाएगा तब हो जाएगा। इंटरेस्ट कैसे आएगा? आप में ख्वाहिशें जब बलवती होंगी, आप में कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा कि हाँ स्वामी जी जो कहते थे ठीक कहते थे, हम सबसे अच्छा कुछ कर सकते हैं अपने फील्ड में। तो बहुत ज्यादा बोला, बहुत अच्छा लगा, और दिल से बता रहे हैं, एक कहीं बोलने से ज्यादा मजा आया बातचीत करने में। हमारी शुभकामनाएं, बेस्ट विशेष तो है ही, और चूंकि गुरु हैं, उम्र में बढ़े, तो मेरा दिल से दुआएं और आशीर्वाद भी है कि आप लोग बहुत बड़ा आदमी बनिए, इतना बड़ा कि हमको भी कहने का गर्व हो कि अरे एक बार हमने लेक्चर दिया था उस बच्चों को, उसी दिन का इंतजार है। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, Anand Kumar ji, for being with us. I will take 2 more minutes from you. I would like to invite Dr. Satish Mode ji to come and felicitate him with shawl and his national bestseller book. I would like to ask Dr. Nisha Pandey and Dr. Ajay Gupta to also come here on the stage. There will be a book launch for both of them. Satish sir, please stay here. Sir, 2 minutes. Both the professors of this institute have written books on management on various subjects. Till then, I will also request the core team members of VESIM Literati Festival to come near the stage. I will request all the students to come on the stage, please.
Core team, everyone, and alumni, please. Jaldi, 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 alumni.